Doesn't matter to me.
But there's no money for that. There's money for benefit. Just if you get a student,
Right.
we'll give you access to being able to get that. And then they can have their own to work. Some people want to use it for work. Some people like you buy it. And then you can use it kind of like we said, you buy it for yourself. Then we pay you. Same
With him, if you bought it, you get a tax.
Oh yeah, I got it. I got so many businesses I can use to write it off with. It's not even,
That's what, but I got, so that's the thing, I got one computer that I use for the real estate, another one that I use for other stuff, and then I got desktops, I got multiple desktops, so I'm trying to just consolidate each presentation, like, I got all my
using 365 or you just roll in?
I only use it because we have to, yeah. I mean,
Because that keeps you from moving on all that. I'm kind of old school. I don't. I'm so segregated.
I just like those pros or whatever they're called.
They're really good.
They're starting so much quicker. That's why it's not.
And you can use your flash drive as your old school.
Right.
You can.
yeah, this thing takes, I mean,
We should probably upgrade these. We have Abby.
Yeah, but like this is important.
A couple years ago, we have a couple of
They want to
ever to get it up.
don't upgrade it.
We can just upgrade it. Yeah, we should.
We have line power.
but
Switch these out.
I'm like a switch to it, but I'd go buy one in our house.
So that's what we do.
it's not really many things, so I can see why it's not down
I mean,
there.
at work in China, we have 5,000 people nationwide, but we lease all of our stuff, and it's always the latest and greatest.
So they're approved, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think probably if more than their ordinance, I think that's separately.
That makes sense. I was thinking there had to be something. I didn't know if there was a tree there.
Yeah, I remember reading it.
So why would you pay?
The one thing I'm trying to get right now is, I want something that I can turn into a,
You can't use the surface.
yeah, okay.
You can't
That's
use
what I
the
thought, because that's one thing.
Then you just
Because I have
decide.
like reams and reams of these things sitting back at the office that I gotta go back through and service them.
No, you want the surface.
And that's what I want. I want to be able to just take notes.
No, yeah. I have no problem if somebody wants to talk about something else.
Yeah.
But if there's no reason to do that, I know I just have like,
Yeah, I know it's an ask we get started, but he's not here.
Yeah, he's not here.
All right.
deviations where you can
So after 7 o'clock, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to call the Gardner City Council meeting to order. Will you please stand and with me recite the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wow, we have a packed room tonight. It's very good to see. We're going to start with presentations. The first presentation I'm going to make, and I'm not sure if we have folks in the audience from the Arbor Day group or not here this evening. All right, well, I'm going to read the proclamation. Whereas, in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, therefore it be resolved that I, Steve Shute, Mayor of the City of Gardner, Kansas, do hereby proclaim April 27, 2018 as Arbor Day in the City of Gardner, Kansas, and urge all citizens to celebrate and support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. So happy Arbor Day, everyone. April 27th is coming up quickly, as is Earth Day, and we're going to be having a celebration of that this Saturday with an Earth Day cleanup. And I believe that we're going to have a good outpouring of support and volunteers from that particular endeavor. Jason Bruce is shaking his head yes, which is good. If you would like to be a part of that, please let the folks here at the City Hall know, and we will be happy to put you on the volunteer list. That's when we do our citywide cleanup of our Gardner Greenway and other locations. So thank you very much. Anyway, next proclamation. And I believe we have folks from the autistic community here today, and would love to have them come forward as I read the proclamation. Here real quick. Great, thank you very much. Whereas autism is a complex developmental disability, scientifically appear during early childhood and affect an individual's ability to communicate, process sensory input, and interact with others. And whereas autism is the third most common developmental disability, affecting 3.5 million individuals nationwide, I should say. And whereas as more health professionals become proficient in diagnosing autism, more children are being diagnosed on the autism spectrum, resulting in rates as high as 1 in 68 children nationally. And whereas accurate early diagnosis and the resulting appropriate education and intervention are vital to the future growth and development of the individual. And whereas support groups such as the Autism Society of the Heartland, which is an affiliate of the Autism Society, have dedicated years of service in their ongoing efforts to advocate for the rights, humane treatment, and appropriate education of all persons with autism. And whereas these groups remain committed to awareness and to educating families, professionals, and the general public to better understand this lifelong disability. And whereas Autism Society, now celebrating 53 years of service to the autism community, is spearheading an awareness effort in order to educate parents, professionals, and the general public about creating a better world for autism. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Steve Shute, Mayor of the City of Gardner, Kansas, do hereby proclaim April of 2018 as Autism Awareness Month in Gardner, Kansas, and urge all employees and residents to participate in our municipality's National Autism Awareness Month activities in order to become better educated about autism and create a better community for individuals with autism. Thank you very much for coming out, and we appreciate all your efforts, and I know that we have several others in the community that are involved in this as well. So come on over, and we'll get a picture. Great. Excellent.
1, 2, 3 right here. Good. Come on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, next up is a presentation on the water and wastewater rate study that was brought before the Utilities Advisory Committee. Gans Garcia, thank you very much for coming out and presenting to us tonight.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Last year, the city hired the services of Larkin, Lamp, and Reinerson to conduct a water and wastewater study, anticipating capital improvement projects to support city growth over the next 10 years. Also, we have formed a rate study subcommittee to evaluate the findings of the study and to provide recommendations to the UAC and City Council within the next few weeks. So tonight we just have a presentation of the findings of the study. We have Laura Gray and Colleen Stolter from Larkin, Lamp, and Reinerson to do the presentation.
Thanks, Gans.
I was just told to talk into the mic, so I will try to do that. I'm going to just kick us off, and then my engineer Colin's going to do the bulk of the study because he's going to be into the details. We're not going to get way into the weeds. We've looked at this for a number of months. We've looked at a lot of ways to meet the next 10 years growth. And you know, you've done facility planning for both water and wastewater, and I think for electric. And those facility plans, the capital improvements recommended, have been put into your capital improvement element. So they're in your plan. And so what we've tried to do is look at how the city can meet the needs and the demands that you need to have to cover those costs, loan payments for debt service, but to cover that and be able to meet those infrastructure needs in the next 10 years. And I guess I just say slide or point to you. Oh, I think you change. I'll let Colin can click. So in that capital improvement study, the water projects, be closer, you have about $60 million of water projects scheduled over the next 10 years. The bulk of that, $40 million of it, is a proposed water treatment plant to expand your capacity from where you're at now, which is 3.8 is what they say they can push through there, 3 million gallons a day, typical production, up to a new 6 million gallon a day plant. The other projects for your water, there's about 8 million that are needed in the next 5 years. Wastewater, that facility plan, you have about $21.5 million of improvements, but the challenge facing the community is that the bulk of that, 17 million, is scheduled in the next 5 years. So that's put a real strain onto your current rates, and that's causing a lot of potential looking at how to look at the rates and how to make that work the best for the community. And I'm going to let Colin go over what we've looked at, where we've ended up working very closely with city staff, and what we're recommending going forward. There's your...
Thank you, Laura. Good evening, council members. So for our rate study, we looked at 4 different rate scenarios. For these 4 different rate scenarios, the expenses that we projected over the next 10 years increased at the same rate for all 4 scenarios. We considered the administration expenses as well as distribution and treatment expenses and project them over the next 10 years. The chart on the right illustrates what the expenses were projected out for that study period. We projected these at growth rates seen over the past 5 years provided by data from the city. And for these 4 different rate scenarios, we use different methodology for how we would increase the rates to accommodate the different capital improvement plans and how to accommodate the capital improvement plans as well as the increasing cost of service of the utilities. We also looked at 3 different improvement schedules for the 4 different rate scenarios, and I'll be going over that just here in a second. If rates are not increased over the next 10 years, the city could accumulate as much as a $3 million budget deficit. The 3 different capital improvement schedules we looked at are as follows. The first being the original CIE plan, which was outlined in the 2014 master plan update. This includes a interconnect with Water One so that the city can begin purchasing water from Water One, because the future demand will be increasing, or will be greater than the capacity of the water treatment plant within the next several years. This original CIE plan also includes a 6 MGD million gallons of water per day plant that would be constructed in 2027. Another plan we looked at is an accelerated CIE plan, which is to move up the 6 MGD water treatment plant by 2021 so that the Water One interconnect would not be needed. And lastly, we looked at an alternate CIE plan, which would be to replace the Water One interconnect with a 2 MGD water treatment plant expansion of the Hillsdale water treatment plant by 2021. And then it still includes the 6 MGD plant in 2027. So looking at the next 10 years, we're projecting a water shortfall by summer of 2022. And that this is because with conservative growth rates, we are estimating that the water treatment plant will exceed its capacity by the summer of 2022. You'll see a small little blue sliver in 2021, but the amount of water that will exceed the plant capacity will be very small. And with you guys have an existing 6 million gallons of treatment storage in your distribution system, and with water conservation practices, we are estimating that you will not actually need a second source of water by 2022. If you would continue with the original CIE plan, you would be purchasing a minimum of $450,000 to $650,000 annually from Water One. With our recommended rates going forward, our recommended capital improvement schedule was the one with the 2 MGG plant expansion in 2021, as well as the larger plant in 2026. After reviewing the different scenarios, we recommend a new base rate or service charge, which is based upon water meter size. Currently, the base rate is the same for all customers, no matter what the water meter size is. Typically, Water One and many other municipalities charge a base rate based on water meter size because water meters are sized to accommodate peak demands. When you consider peak demands, this is what we have to size the infrastructure for. A 4-inch meter requires larger pipes, larger pumping, a larger infrastructure cost than a residential 5/8 meter. So we are proposing a more fair way to charge customers based on their peak demand rather than their annual demand. A good analogy would be how a road is constructed to support rush hour traffic. It's not constructed to support like the average flow of traffic. With this new base rate, we are also recommending 4% rate increases. And at the bottom of the chart, you can see what a average residential water bill would be in 2019 and 2020. We're also recommending a new interdepartmental rate that is based on a cost of service. This is similar to a wholesale rate, so they'll just be charged a rate per 1,000 gallons. With our sewer analysis, we reviewed 3 different scenarios. As Laura already touched on, there is $17 million of capital improvements over the next 5 years, which is it's a little over double of what is scheduled for the water department. Without a rate increase, we're estimating $22 million budget deficit that could accumulate after 10 years. Same with the water chart. The blue here is the expenses that we projected over the next 10 years, which was based on historical records. The red is revenue without rate changes, and green is revenue with the recommended sewer rate changes. What we're recommending is that the city continue do what they do right now, which is to transfer funds between the water and sewer department. If you do not transfer funds, the sewer department would need a minimum of a 40% rate increase next year to afford the scheduled improvements as well as the increasing cost of service. We're recommending that over the next 5 years, you transfer what you surplus on the water department budget and transfer it to the sewer budget to balance the budget. We're also recommending a 4% sewer rate increase as well. And same with the water table. The bottom row is what an average sewer bill would be in 2019 and 2020 with our recommended rates from our report. Other recommendations include increasing the number of months that winter averaging is based on. Right now it's based on 2 months, and it's kind of typical, and a lot of other municipalities do at least 3 to 4 months. If the city was worried about outlier months where you would have a particularly hot winter and you would begin watering earlier, you could collect the data 4 months but only base the winter average on the 3 lowest months, removing the 4th outlier month. We're also recommending that non-residential customers be based on, or be billed on actual water usage. And this is because most non-residential customers should already have an irrigation meter if they do outdoor watering. If they don't have an irrigation meter, this will be an incentive for them to get an irrigation meter. This, with the rate increases that we proposed in this report, the total water and sewer bill for an average residential user would be about $120 per month. And this is a comparison of other municipalities around the area and what their water and sewer bills are. Lastly, let me get the clicker to work. This is a comparison of what Water One's base rate structure is compared to what we're proposing the Gardner one be. As you can see from the previous side, Water One has a relatively low water bill when you compare it to yours, but they have a pretty large base rate for these bigger water meters. So that means non-residential customers would be paying more than what we're proposing. And that's all I have. If you guys have any questions, we'd be happy to answer any of your concerns.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions from the guys? Yeah.
For the interdepartmental rate, were you recommending the base rate be 0 and only be a rate for the actual usage?
Yes, very similar to how wholesale customers are charged.
So what are your thoughts then on recovering that, the piping, the infrastructure for all of those assets, if you will, between all of the buildings that are government buildings? I mean, because that usage number then is strictly what it's costing us for the water. How much of that is being allocated to cover the infrastructure costs that your base rate is helping offset for administration and infrastructure and so forth?
Right. So without a base rate, the per gallon cost would be more than like what wholesale customers would be. We had analyzed what the past 5 years, what it costs to actually produce the water, and this is something that we talked about in a subcommittee that we did last Thursday with the utility board, and it's something to consider in the future. But what we were proposing is it would be more than what the current wholesale rate is. We reevaluated what it actually costs to make and distribute and produce the water, and it would be more money. If we could look at also doing a base rate and then charge a little bit less for what you call the volume structure, but this is what we kind of decided after the subcommittee.
Did you say your recommendation on the water was the 2-gallon expansion
Yes.
plan?
Yeah, well, you know, the cost to implement the cost for the Water One interconnect is projected, I believe, at maybe $4 million or $5 million. And then you also have to do a water compatibility testing.
Right.
So, you know, do you want to do that cost and then still pay $500,000 a year to get water, or do you want to be in charge of your own destiny and do your own plant? That's, you know, obviously for the city to decide, but it's always good to be in control of your own utilities. So
How does that compare cost-wise to the other option, which was building the plant?
Building the 6 MGD plant earlier?
Yes.
We didn't think that there would actually be enough time. When we first looked at it, that we thought that would be an option, but we don't think the timetable is doable.
it would be challenging if you started next week to have a 6 million gallon a day plant online by 2022. You could do it probably, but it's also $40 million or however much that would be in today's dollars brought forward instead of an estimate of, what we did was the estimate for
52 million.
well, what's the estimate for a 2 million gallon a day plant?
Oh, 15 million.
15 millions versus like 52 million, because we don't have the total cost of the projects. We have the annual loan payments.
And then how would that position us as far as, I mean, how much would that cover? In other words,
How much growth?
Yes, including like industrial and when you add those in.
Well, you're producing on a regular sustained production about 3 million gallons a month. I mean, 3 million gallons a day, 90, 91, 92 million gallons a month. And if you add a 2 million gallon a day plant, that means you'd be, you know, be able to produce sustainably 5 or a little more, and maybe on a peak day, 5.8 million gallons a day. So what was the, I'm not sure what, if you do, I'm not sure how many people you have now to know how much growth that is, if we have that in the report somewhere.
Yeah, so when we created this scenario here, looking at the future water outlook, we used a pretty conservative growth rate, not only for residential customers, but also we projected that the New Century Airport would grow at the same rate, which it has been, which is 13%, which is fairly large. So our numbers are pretty conservative here about determining when you actually would need the new plant online by. But with the plant expansion, just based on these projections, you wouldn't need the 6 MGD1 till 2027. And when we design for max day demands, which typically is 2 times your average day demand. So it's, I mean, these are all projections looking 10 years into the future. So it's hard to say what will actually happen. And
Sure.
yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Are we able to get that much water right now? I mean, with the current system we have from Hillsdale, are we, if we do this 2 million gallon per day, are we able to get that volume in our current
That
system?
is outside the purview of a rate study.
Okay.
That would go
I guess
back
that's
to your
more for Gon's
to
then, 'cause-
facility planning.
I mean, I'd hate to think we upgrade and we can't get the volume of water.
No, right now, we can, right now, the average production of water is 2.8, no, sorry, 2.3 average, and we usually, the summer, go to maybe 3.5, 3.6.
Okay.
So with a 2 million gallon day addition, we should be in pretty good shape.
I'm just saying that our pipes from Hillsdale getting here aren't a problem. We're not bottlenecking somewhere
Okay,
along the way.
part of the projects in the CIE is to put a second transmission water line from Hillsdale.
Right, but that's not part of this.
Yeah,
It is, okay.
it's included,
Okay.
it was used for the rate study.
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
We have
all
the-
the CIE, all those projects are in here. Now, whether or not you have, I don't know, the water rights or any of that with capacity of Hillsdale. So
That was my question. Yeah,
do have
water
water.
rights.
We have water rights until 2040.
there you go. That's the answer.
For that capacity.
Okay.
So these are all great questions. The question that I have is, and maybe it's more for the mayor and Gons, and I hadn't quite heard what your conservative projections were based on, number-wise. But
Go ahead.
we are in a growth phase, and if we grow at anticipated rate, I think we would hit it before 2022.
Very possibly.
Obviously, it's blue sky, I get it. But I want to be prepared for that versus reacting to that. So, Mayor, where do you stand on sliding that timetable forward versus backwards? Or I should say backwards versus forward? Because in my opinion, we need to be thinking now and investing now versus a $22 million budget deficit.
Well, there's times, I know that in the last couple of years, we've been kind of getting close to capacity at our plant to be able to manage current needs. We've not gone over. We've not had to do any conservation measures. I think that you make a good point, Randy, that we've got a situation here where our water infrastructure is not keeping up with the pace of our city's growth. It's a good problem to have in one sense, but not so good in another. Because now we're having to have this conversation, which is not a good conversation for anyone to have, but one that we're gonna have to deal with. I can see where you're coming from. I don't know if we have the time or the bonding capacity to be able to manage a $6 million or a 6 million gallon a day plant now.
Well, I don't think time is on our side though, Mayor, and I think we need to look at that like deep dive and understand what our financial capacity is and understand if 3 to 5 years we could have something like that online. Because if you look at the projections from, and I'm sure somebody in here will correct me, but from about 1999, 2000 forward, I believe we were growing at about 1,000 a year.
Yep.
So let's just use that as a benchmark, and maybe it's high, maybe it's low, but 1,000 a year, I mean, we're going to be well in advance of that 2022 if things take off, in addition to the commercial properties that we're bringing online that are going to need well more water, not counting New Century.
Yeah, we're adding 300 to 400 rooftops a year at this point.
Okay.
And then, yeah, we haven't seen the commercial growth take off, but it's coming.
I believe so.
And if we double our commercial, and that's very possible in the next 5 years, we double our amount of commercial outlets here. That speaks to your concern.
Yeah, so my opinion is, first of all, I don't want to run in a budget deficit and then have to turn to the taxpayers for that while we have dollars and cents elsewhere that might need to be looked at again and judged from a need, not a want. So how do we push this forward to get information? Go ahead.
I think your question goes back to the study and your original question. How much, you said the growth estimates were conservative. So was that only residential growth, or was it also industrial other than New Century?
We included New Century and then Kansas Wholesale number 2, or Public Water Supply District number 2. Those two we increased, I think, combined 10% annually, but then, yeah, we did 2% for everyone else, industrial, residential. And that was just based on the past 5 years growth rate.
But in the past 5 years, we've actually had a historically lower rate than we had the previous 15.
And that's my point.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've only in the last 2 or 3 years have we seen the kind of growth that I think we're going to be seeing over the next several years. So
I think we do need to push forward with it, absolutely. Now, how we pay for it, I think there's some options on that and some ideas, but from a general
Quick
standpoint.
question for Ryan. On our contract with New Century, is there, where our water contract, where we're selling them water, is there anything that says we're the priority and they can have to go somewhere else if they have options?
It's been a really long time since I looked at that, so
Okay,
I'd have
it might
to
be something to look
revisit
at,
it.
because if we can, obviously provide something for our citizens first if we had
yeah,
to.
but
Right,
now you're putting it because they.
Well, they need it, I understand.
They need the water. They have higher water demand requirements than the citizens do.
I understand.
That's
Well, I
also
mean,
a
if we
significant
want to look at
revenue
that
source.
contract, though, I mean, we got to look at it, are we making enough on that contract to offset the extra that we're paying out? I'd like to look at that, because if,
I'm assuming that these different changes based on the meter size would probably impact New Century more than anybody else because they use the large meters over there, correct?
Unfortunately, the way the contract is written, we can only increase their rate by the same rate as the residential customers.
There's the problem.
thing I said we should look at that, right?
And we talked with who's in our office considered the best legal expertise, and it's very vague on what rate you can increase, because if we added a new base rate, you could consider that not increasing the other rate, but the contract is a little vague.
Of course it is.
Figure out what the contract does and what you can't.
I think that'd be a really good idea to have a reexamination, a thorough reexamination of that contract.
I agree.
Well, I would agree with Rich, but on a parallel line, I think we need to roll up our sleeves and understand what we need to do to be prepared for this, understanding that we're going to hit this number well before 2022, which for some of us up here, it'll happen within our tenure as an elected member. So we need to get going.
So for the study, it was based off your recommendation for 2 MGD and then the 6 MGD later.
Yes.
So do you have the same slides, maybe not tonight, but that you could provide us that would show what the new rates would be and other recommendations if we did the 6 MGD now?
In 2022, yeah.
Right, because that changes
Yeah.
the timetable, so that changes
Yeah.
what you need for dollars.
Right.
Yeah, we have that scenario available. Yep.
It would be interesting to see what those numbers look like.
Over there.
No.
Okay.
Regarding the 2 million gallon day plant, the plans were to have it operational by 2021,
Okay.
not 2022.
Okay.
So that will cover the 2022 the shortage. Now it can be pushed, we can start earlier,
Yeah, fore aft.
but the only thing, as my own personal opinion is, we don't want to put a 6 million gallon plant hoping that we will have the growth and then it doesn't come.
So that's the chicken and the egg, right? So what is the breaking point that you would suggest that we?
So again, if we start with the 2 million,
Mhm.
and then we can have plans to have a 6, if we see the trend increasing more than expected.
Okay.
But the 2 million will give you time to think and take the necessary action.
Prepare our funding structures.
What was
and
the
everything
total
else.
cost for those two options? The 6 million now and the 2 and 6?
The 2 million now is $15 million. The 6 million gallon per day one in 2027 is 40 million, but that's
That's
including
in those
inflation.
dollars, right.
Yeah, I'm not totally
There
sure.
was a 42 somewhere.
I would have to look into
They
that.
actually, in the master plan, they increase it in cost based upon how far out it is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because everything goes up as you go out.
And it works that way.
Cheaper to build it.
Yeah, I'm happy to start designing a water plant tomorrow.
Back of the napkin.
So the reason to have the
online.
rate subcommittee was to go ahead and start looking at all these findings and come up with a recommendation to the city council. There's a lot of information that it will be impossible to discuss in today.
Sure.
That's fair. What's the opinion of the dais on the 4% rate increase?
I mean, I think that's something we gotta look at, but I think there's maybe some other options too. I mean, we
Yeah,
have
I
some
think we-
robust funds, enterprise funds.
I agree with you, Todd.
Maybe might help to offset some of that.
Meaning,
All right, we're talking about taking money out of electric to pay for water, is that what?
It's a utility fund.
it's a separate utility fund.
It is a
It is.
separate utility.
It is.
I mean, and here's the thing,
you're-
when we took that money, I'm gonna say took, because it was by force, it wasn't for that. So I think that that's a problem.
Something to look at. But either way, I mean, however we fund it, I think it's obviously necessary, however we decide to do it.
Something has to be done. I agree with you there.
Well, either way, I see that as a need, not a want.
Don's, if you could get those projections for the 6 MGD sooner than later and send those
How
out
it
to
will
us
impact your
later.
rates is what
Yeah.
you're wanting to know.
I would like to see that, please.
Probably not gonna like
We
the
did
answer.
I know, it's gonna be higher.
It's gonna be a lot higher.
It's not an annual equal, it's a cumulative over
10 years.
Over 10 years. So a few years you might be, not have quite enough money, but it's a cumulative
Sure.
look at 10 years where you
Sure.
make it back.
Yeah,
So it's not trying to balance every year, it's balancing over the study period.
right. We leave that to Lou.
Right. She finds money all the time. She-
Is that, yeah.
I guess the question is, we need to look at all possible avenues here, which includes re-evaluating that contract we have with New Century, as well as trying to work on our excise structure so that when we have new development come in, they are paying what they need, what we need them to pay in order to be able to provide them with water service.
On the excise structure, you're just talking about the excise tags that we charge
Yes.
for platting?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, we really can't.
You cannot do anything with excise?
We really can't touch that because of the legislative change. I can't remember what year, but basically they said,
It's been years.
right, it's been 15 years probably, that legislature said you can't impose or increase excise taxes, but basically grandfathered those excise taxes which were on the books at the time.
Okay, so my question then is, how do we recoup some of that investment on the front end with some of this new development? Yes, Laura?
Okay, you asked the question, so I'm going to offer an answer, and then I'm ducking.
Okay.
We have development fees for water and wastewater.
There's nothing there.
Yeah.
And you do currently charge system development fees.
The system development fees? Are those development fees in line with other communities?
Yep.
Pretty much?
At this time, sir, from our last fee schedule that we just passed about a year and a half ago, the review that we did kept us in line basically with other
Okay.
communities. Not that I couldn't review them, I mean, it's time to review them again anyway, but that was 18 months ago. There were some a little higher and some a little lower. We were pretty much middle of the road.
I remember that.
Okay. All right.
One more thing, we have a slide that shows the connection fee between Garner and other cities, if you would like to see that.
Sure.
Certainly.
A few additional slides, just in case you got into those. those
We are.
I'm so deep in here, I can't hardly get out.
We don't have control of the.
He's in.
Gonzo, we're waiting on that, and I think I know the answer, but if I were to put in a irrigation system at the house, which I'm not interested in, I like moving hoses.
Yeah, right.
Is the permitting process, does the permitting process catch the metering of that water?
That, I don't have.
I'm sorry, Larry.
He's got a hand up there.
Sorry.
About something.
That would be our question, sir. Yes, we do issue a permit for those when they come in, and as metering systems are added, they do go through our permitting process. They are metered separately, and there is no sewer fee attached to that meter, just the water fee.
Okay, thank you.
And we just put up the slide, I'm not sure if you saw, but this is your comparison with your tap-on fee or connection fee for water and sewer compared to Water One, Johnson County Wastewater, Olathe, and Spring Hill.
So yeah, we're slightly higher than Water One on the 2-inch line and less than.
Do we know our neighbors to the south, what they charge on that? I guess they're water one.
Which neighbors?
The Edgerton.
West.
West. Yeah. Okay. That would be good to know.
Yeah.
We have that data, I just don't have it here.
No, I understand. If you could follow up with this and let us know, I appreciate it.
We have a little bit of flexibility, but not a lot, I would say. Okay.
Any other
Anything else
questions?
for the good of the order? All right, well, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to presentation item number 4. Laura Gorley, Finance Director, talking about the Citizen Online Budget Survey results.
Point of order, Mayor.
Yes.
So what are we expecting back from the water presentation?
I believe we're expecting back some more detailed information concerning the contracts, as well as some additional numbers from the $6 million gallon a day plant in 2022.
Okay, and the 2 million gallon?
We know that one.
We
15
already
million
have
now.
that one. That's
But we know how much it's gonna cost to build it?
15 mil.
15? Okay.
Yep. But you're looking at the impact on rates.
Yes.
So that's what we don't have.
Yeah, that's what's in there now.
Yep.
so.
Okay.
Okay. Hello, Laura.
Hello, this monitor seems different tonight. Can you see me? Okay. So this is, I promised you a presentation on the results of the Citizen Online Budget Survey. And I'm just going to give a little background, mostly for the audience and the listening people. You've heard it, but in recognition of society's preference for online interaction, combined with an attempt to get increased citizen input on the budget process, we began conducting these online surveys in 2016. And the reason for that is because, as the 2018 survey results showed, we got 26 more times the number of responses by doing it online than we did for people that attend budget forums in person. During my March 5th presentation about budget policy development, we discussed what happened at the November 2017 council retreat and noted that you have significant citizen input and your community stakeholders, so not just citizens but businesses and other stakeholders as well. In collaboration with governing body and staff, we made all of those visionary plans and the corresponding implementation tools that we talked about at the council retreat, the comp plan, the growth management strategy, all those that we talked about. And that is actually also budget policy in those respective areas. So you had a great deal of community stakeholder input and the development of all of those. Oops, sorry. We also discussed that at the retreat that we took all of those documents in addition to other citizen input, and we talked about the strategic plan, which, among other things, took your strategic goals and priorities, input from community surveys, suggestions from your different citizen advisory boards, objectives from all of those visionary documents and implementation tools I just talked about, and in addition to our capital improvement project or program, 5 years, and capital improvement element, the long-term look, which are also reviewed by citizens on the Planning Commission. So what I'm saying is you have a great deal of citizen and community stakeholder input that not only did you have for the last 5 years to make all those documents, but you still have it. You have advisory boards and all this other stuff. And now, with that being said, that's why we went to the online survey. So also at March 5th, I discussed that you've given a great deal of your budget policy directive already. In the last 5 years' work, we've worked the plan, planned the work, now we work the plan. And so the strategic plan that was approved in last November took your 4 strategic goals, identified the top priority for each goal, the objectives for each of those priorities, and then we'll take those and build the 2019-2020 budget and onward. And remember, all of that came from community stakeholder input. Finally, at the March 19th meeting, there was a great deal of discussion about how did I get to these questions. So I'm going to go back through that again because not everybody was here. As I'll remind you, those questions, but for the airport, and I'll get to that in a minute, were the exact same questions that you all answered at your council retreat, but that didn't have clear direction. So you had a very broad range of answers. So, and it also wasn't anything that was confirmed when you approved the strategic plan. So it was those things left dangling. We were filling in the edges. So in summary, the whole point of the survey questions were to provide additional information to help you all come to some consensus on some things that yet to have consensus. So the survey was open for 4 weeks from March 12th through midnight on April 6th. And it should be noted that I went ahead and divided it between residents and all stakeholders, and there's a reason for that, and I'll get to that in the presentation. But one other thing I want to point out is you've actually had 2 council meetings since we kicked this survey off, so you've actually provided some additional input since then, but that's okay. We'll still get all of those citizen input as well. It just gives you more information. And as a reminder, per your directive, we are having a citizen budget forum on Thursday. So with that, I'll go through this. It won't take very long, but let's go through them. So the first one was all stakeholders. So as you can see, 12% of the people who responded to this survey identified themselves as not residents of Gardner. And you know, usually I wouldn't care about this, but because you've paid me to do numbers, I will tell you that in the past, the reason why I went ahead and split them out later is because it was only like 4% or less. So you've had a big jump in people who consider themselves interested in what you're doing with your budget, but aren't necessarily residents. Doesn't mean they're not stakeholders.
Right.
So I'm just clarifying. But there was a big increase. So this is still the all stakeholders survey. The second question was regarding the Main Street Corridor Plan. And as a reminder, the question was, this is a short version, but the question was actually, thriving communities have a downtown sense of place. The nearly completed Main Street Corridor Plan identifies improvements to develop this sense of place. Funding these improvements is a good investment. As you recall, that was a question at the November Council retreat. Your responses were 3 strongly agreed, 1 agreed, 2 neutral. So we tried to get some clarification on this by 2 things. 1, we took out neutral. You can't vote neutral. 2 was we changed the wording from promoting is a good investment to funding is a good investment. And as you can see, if you add together those who are inclined to agree in some fashion, you have 85% who agree in some fashion, 14% who don't, that it's a good investment. The next question was, capital improvement tax dollars should be invested to maintain what we have before building new improvements. Again, a question from your council retreat. Your answers were 1 agree, 1 strongly agree, 3 neutral, 1 disagree. So we took out neutral. That was the only thing we changed. As you can see, if you add them together, it's basically 3 to 1 who in some way agree or strongly agree, because compared to 1 who are inclined to disagree in some manner. The last question is a new question, and it was caused by the significant discussion that we actually got into, you actually got into, at the March 5th meeting. If council recalls, the discussion ranged everywhere on the airport from sell the airport to public-private partnerships to more hangars, less hangars. So all it was an attempt to get some clarification and consensus, because there were actually no directives given that night on March 5th. So the survey went out March 12th. So we added a question about airport that night. And actually I intended to add a question at the golf course that same time, but at March 5th, you actually gave the directive to start the contact with Great Life. So adding these together, good investment for the municipal, tax dollars for improvements at the municipal airport is a good investment. All stakeholders are 49% agree in some form, 51% disagree in some form. So residents only. And like I said, this is because it went from less than 4 to more than 12%. So that's the only reason why I split it out. It's just more information. So on this one, back to the Main Street Corridor Plan, nothing really changed. It's still 80, if you want to round up, it's a 1% swing. It's 84% say it's agree in some way, 15%, 15.6% don't agree. So it's almost exactly the same as all stakeholders. Take care of what we have before we do anything new. It's still 3 to 1, whether you're all stakeholders or whether it's residents only, for agree that we should take care of what we have before we do something new. And the airport is improvements at the airport is a good investment. This one was probably the bigger swing. All stakeholders was basically 49 yes, 51 not so much. Now it's, let's round up, 43-57. So 43% agree, but that's just residents. So one more time, in summary, Main Street Corridor either way, 85-15. Maintaining what we have, either way, 3 to 1. Airport's a coin flip, all stakeholders, a little bit towards not so much if it's just residents. But I'm going to have more on that in my next presentation for the Economic Development Reserve Fund. So I don't have anything else to say with that one.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Any
Thank you, Laura.
questions? Yes.
I just wanted to say real quick, I thought it was interesting that we have maintain what we have, got 3-to-1, but then when it talks about the airport, which we already have, it's less than half. So I just couldn't quite figure that out.
Make a lot of sense.
So, I know.
I might shed some light on that in the next presentation.
Okay,
I
great.
have a thought.
All right, well, I appreciate that.
Randy? Mark? Okay. All right, thanks, Laura. Appreciate it.
I'm next up. So when
And,
you're
oh
ready.
yes, presentation on number 5.
Okay.
Presentation fiscal year 2018 estimate revised fiscal year 2019-2020 biennial economic development reserve fund budget.
Blah, 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 right?
Yes.
Okay. So again, March 5th. March 5th was a big night for me and you. Back during that meeting, there was presentation by outside agencies at that meeting. And as we talked about, per charter to ordinance number 18, well, let me just go here. It'll be faster. Okay. At that meeting, you had all those presentations by outside agency, the chamber, the EDC, the cemetery, all those people. The only ones that we're not talking about is the cemetery because they're general fund. So they're off the table tonight. So per Charter Ordinance 18, the Economic Development Council develops the Economic Development Reserve Fund budget, which is our transient guest tax. And previously, council expressed desire to have some input on what that happens with that money. So to accommodate that, we scheduled those outside agencies' budget request meetings the day prior to the Economic Development Council meeting, so that people who are in attendance are almost all on the board, and they all got to hear what you had to say for your input. So that night, on April 2nd, council's thoughts, in summary, were that you wanted increased funding for the chamber, which is going to be called Convention and Visitors Bureau, essentially. So from here on, I'll say CVB instead of chamber. You wanted close cooperation with that entity, and that the CVB would assist also with sports marketing. And at that meeting, you said, let's go roughly 50% of the transient guest tax revenue, or $135,000, to the CVB. And you wanted to double the EDC investment. And you discussed increased funding to the museum for improvements. The number was tossed out about $20,000. And you wanted to continue to fund the small business assistance program. So, since everybody was here to talk about that and hear what you said, the next morning, the Economic Development Council largely followed those recommendations. The CVB is actually receiving, rather than $150,000 for 2019 and 2020, which includes a reallocation of some funds that the city was using to market city events and sports. Well, now the CVB is going to do all of that in conjunction with our staff. So the money was just pushed up under CVB. The EDC funding was increased in 2018 to $70,000, hence your doubling, and the additional $35,000 is coming from the Economic Development Reserve Fund. In 2019 and 2020, that amount was increased to $80,000 and $90,000 respectively. The museum increase was $20,000 for 2019 and 2020, and the Small Business Assistance Program funding continues at $25,000. In addition, there was a great deal of discussion about the CVB and its partnership with the city, and so in summary form, the highlights of that discussion was the formation of the committee for the CVB would include the members of the Economic Development Council. There was discussion that a contract would need to be developed with the CVB for their duties and deliverables prior to the 2019 disbursement, including they would coordinate promotion of city events and sports with city staff. There would be to integrate input from the Vintage Aircraft Association and coordinate and promote their events, and that a future CVB advisory committee would include the city's Parks and Rec director. And then finally, in general, the future funding, it's kind of worked out like this, but in the future also, as transient guest tax came in, it would be distributed basically 50% to the CVB, 25% to EDC, and 10 to 15% to the small business program, and the remainder determined as funding allows. Now that is in the future, so again, that can't be completely binding, but that was the consensus direction. And the one thought I would share with you is there's been 2 council meetings and an economic development council meeting, and you saw that the Aircraft Association, BAA or whatever is in there. I would, if I may, suggest that perhaps the reason why that doesn't make sense is your message is not getting out about the value of your airport. So perhaps this helps. To be determined, because nothing's happened yet and it won't happen until 2019, but I think a lot of things that we do here is about making sure that the message got out. So your community stakeholders are a coin flip. Let's be honest, it's a coin flip, but the residents aren't getting it. And I don't know that it's, they don't have any reason to be at the airport. So hence your marketing. That was my thought, and you're welcome to ignore it. I am only staff.
Makes sense.
No, I think it's absolutely correct. I mean, we're not, most people in this town don't know that we even have an airport, let alone that it provides that kind of value.
Well, it's on the opposite end of the highway.
Yep.
They don't go that direction unless you have a reason to go that direction. They don't have an airplane. They don't. That's just my staff thought that you are completely free to ignore.
I agree. I mean, like, yeah, as a citizen, you said, hey, do you want to use my tax dollars to pay for something I don't even really know much about? Yeah, I'd probably say no. So, you're right.
And I'm not saying do anything with it. I'm just saying it's information for you.
I remember when we had that discussion, the Economic Development Steering Committee, that came up, that was a significant hole in our promotional activities for tourism in particular that we really need to fill. So
with that being said,
yep.
The 2 things I gleaned from this was, are we going to have the CVB promote airport events? And this reiterates why we have to have a meeting with the school. Because if they're going to be handling school or sporting events with city staff, if any of those are going to be going to the school or they're going to continue doing them, we have to figure out who's doing what and how it's being out there so the message is uniform outside the city.
So, Councilman, I don't know if it was a rhetorical question. It is on the partnership thing that we are to integrate input from VAA and promote their events. So it's right there in that bullet.
Yeah, reiterating that that's
important. Reiterating. Okay, just checking. Yep. Okay.
I do have a question. I wasn't here for the last meeting, but the CVB, do we have anything with them where that there's certain a number amount that they have to come to us to get approved that they're going to spend, since we're giving them this carte blanche for $150,000? Is it like Cheryl has an authority of a certain amount of money to spend? Do we have anything in writing with them that says you will not spend more than this without?
Yeah. So, Rich, we don't have anything.
No, Cheryl's trying to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go.
No, we do not have something that determines what his spend authority is.
I think that would be a good idea.
I agree.
So let me play off of that because I've got that written down and you've already brought up the topic, but I'd like to understand what other CVBs do. I'd like to understand what their intended function is. Mm-hmm. I support it. What their ideal outcomes are. Oversight, which I think is what Rich is talking about, both dollars as well as operational, and then what those reasonable deliveries are. The thing that I'm concerned about is as the transient guest tax grows, with the idea that more hotels come as an example, does the CVB grow at that same rate? Because I think we need that should be a concern. As guest tax increases, does the CVB increase? So I'd like to see some parameters put in there so that it's more about the dollar, not the percentage later on down the line. Because if they're getting 50% of what we bring in, that could go from 150 to 350.
Correct.
Now I understand things grow exponentially. I get all that stuff. And then I wasn't in the meeting the day after.
No.
But what proposal did the committee review that led them to thinking the 50% allocation? I know what we spoke of on the dais, but there are checks and balance, let's be honest. What proposal did they look at, back to Rich's point, that led them to believe 50% was a good number? What proposal or what deliverables or what was out there that Jason and team brought that led us down that path?
I think that what the consensus of the folks in that particular room was that in order for us to seed a dynamic and high-performing Convention Visitors Bureau, that was a start. Now, here's the thing. We're going to have to develop a contract, and that contract's going to have to spell out all the terms and conditions and the, any other, aspects of that arrangement that we can all sign off on and be comfortable with. So all that's going to be happening over the next 12 to 18 months. That 50% is not set in stone. It's not something that's been agreed to, by us because we do this budget every single year.
It's a 2-year budget though, right?
It's a 2-year budget.
So it's not every single year. So
But-
we need to put some riders in there to make sure we're looking at it.
Correct.
on
We
an
don't see the
annual basis.
50% till 2020.
The amount, right, well, it's actually,
Not
right,
exactly.
we gave specific amounts for
2018,
for 2018 estimate because the EDC increased.
Okay.
And then chamber didn't change. And then it becomes a CVB in 2019.
Okay.
Yes.
And there was specific amounts, which was 50% of the projected revenue.
So 150.
And then, plus the marketing.
Correct.
And then EDC was 80 and 90 respectively.
But the
That's
EDC already has, sorry to interrupt you, Laura, but the EDC already has stuff documented with
Right.
respects to deliverables. So
Right,
I'm not
so-
too concerned about that.
I'm just saying that's how the budget, so after, the discussion was, in general, after that, which you'd have to do the next budget cycle, because you'd have to come back, it was still, the intent was 50%, 25, 10 to 15 for small business, and then whatever's left. That was not, I mean, there's nothing you can do about confirming, documenting, setting that in stone unless you were to start something now. I mean, that's still 2 years away. That's through 2020.
I'd just like to also say, I'd like to see that with Southwest Johnson County EDC too, if there's a certain amount that we say.
Well, EDC, I know you were sick, but the EDC is going all percentage, is that correct?
No,
No,
that 80
no,
per
no,
to
I'm
90.
talking about
I'm
something
sorry,
different.
go ahead.
So, no, the EDC actually has a flat amount. The CVB is going to increase as your revenue increase because they're going to a percentage of your revenue.
So I'd like to see that we have some kind of agreement with them that they have a purchase, a set
Oh,
thing,
authority.
have
I
a
see.
certain amount.
Gotcha.
Yes.
That's where I'm
Oh, I
trying to.
apologize.
that's-
Gotcha.
Okay,
No, I know.
so the oversight.
Yeah, so I was gonna have that in the other one too, but we got off track, so I would like to see that from both sides, so.
So,
But
all this commentary back and forth about checks and balances and everything else, are we talking about changing the ordinance for the EcoDev Council? Because it sounds like we're wanting to be, I mean, the check stop's here anyway, right? So are we wanting to delegate it more instead of it coming to us, they present, we came up with our numbers, and then it went to them, numbers are now whatever they come up with, and then we digest them?
I'm just saying for a large ticket item, you know, that.
I'm saying it across the board, though. Do we want to, because this is changing the dynamic here?
I think it'd be a good idea to review it for sure. I mean, because if anytime you get a large sum of money and there's a potential for something to happen if we don't have a checks and balance system that accounts for that amount of money.
So I guess then, why do we want to continue with what we're doing now, where we take feedback, provide numbers, they provide further feedback? Why don't we just take their feedback in the first place, and then we'll make a decision? Why do we do this back and forth thing?
I'm just, well, I wasn't here to ask.
No, I just mean from an EcoDev council perspective.
I'm just saying, I didn't want to go see a new truck out there that, you know, the citizens of Gardner bought when.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying, why do we do this back and forth? Why is this council different than anything else?
Because the stakeholders are more than just the people behind the dais here.
Sure, but isn't that just,
I mean,
feedback coming into the dais who's writing the check?
We're not writing the whole check.
Sure you are.
No, we are
Well, I mean,
not.
the transient guest tax, we're not writing the check at all, the guests are.
That's correct.
Right, but we are the purse holders, if you will.
Well, again,
Right.
from the standpoint of the budgeting for these different agencies, we're only a part of that budget. We're not all the budget.
It looked like we're going
I
to be
mean,
a pretty big part
Looks
of
like
it.
we're the
I mean-
budget.
No, we are not.
No,
I'm
I
saying
mean,
for 150
I'm
grand.
talking about the purview that is in front of us now. What their budget is total is irrelevant, because we're talking about the transient guest tax,
But it's not irrelevant.
right?
I mean-
This number is the only thing we can control. We can't control their entire budget.
Correct, but by basically disbanding the economic development
I'm not saying do
advisory
that.
group.
All I'm saying is, why do we do this back and forth? Why don't we just take their input that we took that night at the dais, right? We took their input, we gave these numbers, then why does it go to them, and then it comes back to us again with different numbers that we, do or don't agree to? Now we want to put checks and balances and we throw it back over the wall? Why don't we just say, here's the numbers?
Well, we're not putting checks and balances in. What we're doing is we're saying that, and this, we talked about this in the economic development meeting. We've got to have contracts that are associated with these numbers, to have performance metrics in them. I mean, we know this, they know this. I mean, what we're going to be, and again, when we talk about can we go back to the slide that talks about the formation of the CVB? Right there. No, next one.
No, it's this one. So, may I answer Councilman's question quickly?
Yes, please.
We didn't do this until this year, because the charter ordinance says you guys aren't part of it.
Right.
So it was at your request
Could be that.
that I arranged so that the people who were going to meet the next morning were pretty much all in this room, with the exception of Mr. Palmer from Hampton Inn,
Correct.
to hear what you had to say. Previously, and per your charter ordinance as it stands now,
Didn't hear anything.
they don't need to hear anything because
Right.
it's theirs to do.
Correct.
And you're not really, it's still that.
Right.
You provided input on the front end, they took your input for the most part,
Exactly.
and then changed it, and that's where we still are under this charter ordinance.
So under the existing charter ordinance, what checks and balances are even possible?
That's if you guys want
There's none.
content.
That's why I was comparing Southwest Johnson County documentation that Greg Martinet has given to us for X number of
Extensive
dollars as an example of what I'd like to see for the CVB.
Yes.
That's all I was trying to say, by asking what my intended functions are, ideal outcomes, oversight. I mean, we have oversight.
So we want to handle this through contracts, not overhauling the ordinance.
That's where I stand. I think
we
the
need to
ordinance
have
is fine, and it gives them the flexibility to do what they need to do. I'm not a pro in any of those realms.
But I also think that in order for them to get the money, they have to show performance for it.
No, 100%
And
agree.
I mean, that's what the whole point of the contract is. I mean, contracts are made so that we can enforce those performance objectives. Well, I
Yeah,
mean-
we've had problems with the contract.
Oh, I know, like
Not
golf
from
course.
Ryan, but.
Well, I think that
But yeah,
the
but-
CVB, a great portion of that will be staffing anyway, just in my mind.
But I agree to Rich's point. I'd like, if there's major items that are going to be purchased or utilized, I would like to see that, at least a heads up on that.
So I have, this in the past, with the CDB, KCK, and there was a contract between the municipality and the CDB with deliverables, expectations, permissible expenditures, impermissible expenditures, things like that, so.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
So is this a directive for the city attorney to do something like that?
I think that it's
I think
something we need to explore,
because-
absolutely.
Because you're
cheaper
gonna
than
have a
having somebody
disbursement
buy a trip
2019. You have a budget 2019,
Right.
and they're gonna be looking for it, because they're
Well,
making a budget.
Well, isn't there again, I'm going to go back to that slide that talks about the contract before 2019's disbursement. There was a slide that had that.
Oh, there.
Okay.
That's
Contract
the
developed
highlights.
for duties deliverables prior to 2019 disbursement. That's what we're talking about.
Were you going to be dispersing here in May, June?
No, you
It's
won't
2019.
disperse till
Or
2019.
January, I apologize, of 2019.
And they'll bill you. I had a conversation with them on email that because the transient guest tax doesn't come in every month,
Right.
that they should invoice us quarterly as
Quarterly.
it comes in.
Exactly.
But I would say that it's possible, remember, I did say those are ballpark projections, then I didn't make them, they came from Hampton Inn. So if you were to come up with a shortfall, you'll be looking at another way to cover that, because I'm gonna guess those people are going out and making a budget based on what they got from this. So, and there's no way to know whether those projections are right or wrong, because that building isn't done yet. So, just something to keep in the back of your mind. I really don't have anything else to say besides that. I mean, there's no way to know if those projections are good or bad.
So Laura, maybe I'm translating, and it goes back to my question, how the CVB percentages change as the hotels or guest taxes increased. Are you saying that we should look at dollar amount versus percentage?
I'm staff.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have no input. But I will tell you that the EDC's portion is already above 25%. That 80 and 90 is more than 25% of the
agree.
projections. And the Economic Development Council's already agreed to those numbers. And I'm sure Mr. Martinette's making a budget on
Yeah.
those numbers.
Yeah, he is.
So in the out years, I have a note out there that says, by heads up, that's already more than 25%. So I'm going to guess we're not going to cut it, but it hasn't caught up yet to the projections.
Right, okay. So percentage or dollars?
Well, I think for
I'm
this-
okay with percentage if there's a contract associated with it.
Okay.
Sounds like it all comes down to what the contract says.
Yeah.
Regardless of what we're talking
All
about
right,
tonight.
We're waiting on you, Ryan. What are you doing over there?
I mean,
Should be feverishly
right?
typing.
And actually, I think someone else mentioned that we needed to look at what other convention and visitors bureaus were doing and see what their mix of expenditures is and their mix of staffing is vis-a-vis their objectives, their goals. I don't want a lot of waste or abuse of dollars either here, okay? But I also think that there needs to be enough funding for that CVB to be able to do the job they need to do.
No, I support it 100%. I just think we need to draw some pretty tight parameters.
Well, that's-
at least the first couple of years, work within the ordinance and let them do their thing.
So, I guess the direction is that we're going to draw up contracts and that they need to be aware that,
They know.
okay.
They were in the meeting. I will say, though, there is no Laura directive in this. This is budget, and the budget by charter ordinance is hereby set. And I won't be changing it because there's nothing I can do about that.
Sure.
So it's done. I won't be talking about Economic Development Reserve Fund anymore. Everybody's nodding. Okay, good. And after that, finance directors don't do that kind of contract. That's him. So, but the budget's done. All good?
I mean, I think if the objective is to micromanage Jason Camus and Greg Martinet, I don't think that's I'm not interested in that either.
I don't think anybody wants to do that. I think we want to give them the freedom to operate and flourish.
But no,
Just,
we're watching.
just a little checks and balances.
No, and I don't
So,
mind that either, but, yeah.
Do we need to provide direction to you, Mr. City Attorney, as to if we need to put a certain dollar amount? Would you like to present something? How do you want to proceed?
Well, I mean, I can come up with appropriate curbs to make sure that the expenditures are being expended on, I think, within the permissible bounds of what
I think it would be not to exceed what's in here.
The charter ordinance says. But if there are specific deliverables that you all expect, then I will need guidance on that.
Okay, all right.
Fair enough.
And I think Jason should be a part of that.
And
I totally agree. I think that he needs to be part of the goal
I'm
setting.
guessing because I'm not sure, but audit capacity, I mean, are we in that, how are we, if we want to audit the books, I mean, are we?
Right.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think,
They'll
just in
charge
case.
you for that.
Huh?
They'll charge you. That won't be
We'll
like
take it out
part
of the money
this-
we're giving them.
Okay, I was just gonna say, heads up, that's not part of the city's
saying.
audit contract because it's
Hey,
an
I'm
outside
already giving you money,
agency.
we'll just give you less, so.
What you typically include in that circumstance is the right to conduct
Right.
an audit
I
at the
want to
city's
make sure we
expense.
got that in there.
It's not that they will deliver an audit annually unless you give that directive.
No, correct.
Well,
I'm fine with
Since
just,
we've come full circle, it almost seems like we put the cart before the horse, and it would be nice to see the EDC provide said goals, and then we can approve said goals as to, we agree with this deliverable for X dollars with the attorney's input.
EDC and CVB.
Well, the EDC
EDC
is
is
all of
already-
them.
yeah, it's like-
It's SWEDC, it's
Okay,
all
all
of them.
right.
I mean, we've got that council, let them run with it.
I think it's fair.
Yeah, I think so.
And I mean, you can work off some of the contracts you've dealt with KCK and others to come up with a framework that we can look at.
wish I wasn't sick last meeting. This would have been easier to do last meeting.
It's all right. We got time.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. Appreciate it, Laura. With that, we will move to public comment. Yes, members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. There are quite a few people here. I'm sure there are going to be folks that come up to the podium tonight. Just a reminder that we have a 5-minute time limit on comments, and that there will not be any personal attacks or profanity expressed at the podium. So with that, I will open the mic for public comments. If you have a comment and wish to make one, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and be heard.
Quiet groups this year.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, me too.
With no one coming forward, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there any member of the council who wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Number 7.
Number 7. Councilman Gorsuch. Anyone else? Okay. With that, I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 6.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Melton, that we approve items 1 through 6 on the consent agenda. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda items 1 through 6 pass. Councilman Gregorczyk, questions on agenda item number 7?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to apologize to the chief. I didn't ask this in advance. It was a short end of the week last week, so I apologize. With respects to the cameras and in-car cameras, what's the life expectancy of those, and do we have a lease option?
The warranty is for 1 year, which is the standard.
Yes, sir.
They've been lasting about 3 years is what we get out of them. We do some general maintenance when they fail. And they've been really good about helping us with when things are out of warranty because of the level of consumption that we have. They've worked with us really well. But yeah, we're getting about 3 years out of them.
So we would need, and this is just a follow-up statement, so we would need to put about 40,000 plus whatever that costs, you know, however that cost grows over the years into the budget so we can stay up with that?
Well, no. The part of the problem now is that we are using the batteries 24 hours a day. I mean, they're always in charge, or we're not using them in the appropriate manner. We're not draining them down, recharging them because they're being used on a constant cycle. What this will allow us to do is use them for 1 shift and then park them, let them charge, and let the backup battery charge. So the life expectancy we're hoping will be more like 5 or 6 years. Plus the additional warranty that we have with these will allow us to maintain them better instead of what we're doing now where we have to use them 24 hours a day.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Sure.
Any other questions from anyone else? Okay. With that, I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda item number 7.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Gregorczyk, that we authorize the city administrator to purchase 26 body cameras, 5 in-car HD panoramic cameras, and associated hardware software from WatchGuard Video for $38,413.02. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda item number 7 passes. Committee recommendation item number 1. Consider an ordinance approving a rezoning from CP2 Planned General Business District to R3 Garden Apartment District for approximately 9.41 acres located at the northwest corner of University Drive and Moonlight Road, parcel Z-18-03. Larry Powell, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. We should have a representative from the Garden Apartment District here tonight. Here we go. No, all right. I just wanted to recognize that individual so we knew they were here. So what we have for you then is a little bit of background description on this item. It's, if you want to bring up the picture, Amy, please. Located at the northwest corner of University Drive and Moonlight Road, this area was annexed into the city in 2003, the area in the hatched rectangle that you see before you. During the same year, the development known as University Park, a 157.5-acre development, was rezoned and preliminary approved with multiple zoning classifications and uses. And as of today, a majority of the original development remains vacant, which is the large RP2 area that you see, the CP2 below, which is not the part with the initial is the city. The area to the left, this map is a little inaccurate. There's a straight line now. That brown line you see divides the CO and the CP2, the CO and the RP3 district. So the subject property was originally zoned the hatched area CP2, Planned General Business District, and the surrounding zoning includes rural residential zoning directly to the north, and the CP2 designation to the south, which is of University Drive, and R3 to the west. The only properties currently developed are the rural residential to the north and New Century Air Center to the east, which is across Moonlight Road. The proposed rezoning to R3 is a more compatible zoning designation with the residential zoning designations directly adjacent to the subject property, which has been changed from RP2 to R3 and RP2 by the zoning. It will come to you next month. The R3 zoning designation is more restrictive classification than the CP2 and allows for more suitable uses and building types adjacent to the existing residential zoning, and provides a buffer between those commercial uses to the south and east and to the residential uses to the east and, to the north and the west. So when considering this rezoning request, the consistency of the proposed zoning with the 2014 City of Gardner Comprehensive Plan was one of the 10 criteria, and it is possible for a development to be inconsistent with one portion of the comprehensive plan and with being consistent with another portion, but it requires a balance or weighing of the overall impact, and the future land use map has identified this area for low-density residential, which is defined as primarily a detached single-family homes. And the applicant has proposed that the R3 Garden Apartment District, which is defined in the Gardner Land Development Code as follows. The Garden Apartment District provides residential living in a high-density pattern as a transition between neighborhoods and more intense uses, which in this case would be the industrial to the east, and where a high level of accessibility, public amenities, and support services are immediately available, which will be the Justice Center to the south. The proposed development does meet the intent statement of the comprehensive plan by providing a variety of housing to attract new residents to the community, such as young professionals, new families, middle-aged professionals, and empty nesters. And the comprehensive plan incorporates the residential area plans to provide policies and recommendations intending to reinforce the positive character of neighborhoods throughout the city. And this site has been identified as new residential growth area, which has the opportunity to contribute to and enforce the city's existing character and identity by implementing the following actions. It ensures new development which meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance and landscape ordinance now combined into the Land Development Code, and provides flexibility where necessary to accommodate a variety of housing types and intensities. It ensures the character of the new residential areas are compatible with existing neighborhoods and reflect the intended character of Gardner in terms of block size and configuration and housing scale and architecture and design of the public realm. And it works closely with residential developers to encourage the local development patterns that provide a variety of housing types and allow aging citizens to downsize and stay in the neighborhood or subdivision. So during the planning process of the Main Street Corridor Plan in 2017, a market study indicated that maintenance-provided patio homes for seniors and multifamily housing was in great demand in Gardner. And during the March 27, 2018 Planning Commission meeting, a public hearing was held as part of the application process for the project. No one came forward to oppose or express concern regarding the rezoning request, and the governing body has 3 action options regarding this rezoning application. They can approve such recommendations from the Planning Commission by adoption of the same ordinance, override the Planning Commission's recommendation by a 2/3 vote of the membership of the governing body, or return the same with the Planning Commission for further consideration together with a statement specifying the basis for the governing body's failure to approve or disapprove. The staff recommendation and the recommendation of the Planning Commission is to approve the adopted ordinance 2573, approving the rezoning of approximately 9.41 acres located at the northwest corner of University Drive and Moonlight Road from CP2 district to R3 district. The applicant is here if you have any questions to request from that individual.
Great, thanks, Larry. Any public comments on new business, I'm sorry, on committee recommendation item number 1? With no one coming forward, questions from the council, and understand, yes, we do have the applicant here. So if you want to ask questions of them, I'm sure they'll be able to they'll be willing to answer.
Excited to see it.
Okay. This will be the fastest committee recommendation I think we've ever had.
Benefit of having the committee.
Exactly.
Here, here.
All right, with that, I will entertain a motion on ordinance number, what was that ordinance number again? 2573.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Winters, that we adopt ordinance 2573 approving the rezoning of approximately 9.41 acres located at the northwest corner of University Drive and Moonlight Road from CP2 district to R3 district. City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Baldwin.
Yes.
Councilman Gregorczyk.
Yes?
Councilman Melton.
Yes.
Councilman Winters.
Yes.
Mayor Shute.
Oh, I do get to vote, huh? Oh, yes. Ordinance number 2573 passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Committee recommendation item number 2. Consider adopting an ordinance approving amendments to the cover and chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10, 11, and Appendix A of the City of Gardner Comprehensive Plan, and adopting the Gardner Main Street Corridor Plan and Gardner Main Street Corridor Market Analysis. Now, you guys all looked at this, right?
Yeah,
Yep,
I got it.
every page.
Every page, right? Okay, all right.
Been to all the meetings.
And yes, of course. Larry, please continue. You're not going to summarize all this, are you?
We do have a summary, yes, sir.
Okay.
This would be the Cliff's Notes version for you. So we're not planning on spending hours and hours reviewing this, but we do have our consultants here for the part of the comprehensive plan amendments for the Main Street Corridor and market analysis. So because part of this is the adoption of that plan, and then the rest of it is the adoption of the text amendments in the items in the areas that you just mentioned. So we'll basically try and go through this. The quick background description of this is starting back in October of 2016, the City Council approved an agreement with the Mid-America Regional Council to create the Gardner Main Street Corridor Plan, and this effort was made possible through a grant from the Mid-America Regional Council's Planning Sustainable Places Initiative, a regional program funded by the state allocated surface transportation program, or Livable Communities. Excuse me while I remove my paper clips. The pilot was to assist communities in exploring transportation network improvements and enhance quality of life and support long-term community growth and make them more sustainable communities. A total of 26 communities in Kansas and Missouri applied for 2017 funding, and Gardner had the top scoring application in both states. For this promising beginning has emerged a market-based specific area plan that has been extensively vetted with the community that will provide visionary policy and project guidance for the heart of Gardner. Changing regional growth patterns and demographic shifts influencing housing demand created a need for a study informing a revisioning of Gardner's economic and civic corridor. The plan focuses on neighborhoods and activity centers adjacent to the US 56 highway corridor from the western gateway near the airport and logistics park to the eastern gateway near the I-35 intersection. This plan is also was created to address a recommendation of the comprehensive plan to initiate more specific and detailed plans for the Main Street Corridor and I-35 interchange areas. So this plan was in fact part and parcel of the 2014 comprehensive plan and was follow-up to that comprehensive plan and getting more infill and planning stages into our downtown growth patterns and redevelopment of the downtown area. The projects involved extensive requirements and opportunities for public engagement and community consensus building, and a 19-member steering committee representing various professional interests provided direction. The steering committee was assisted by numerous local, county, and regional professionals representing economic development, transportation, local, county, and regional professionals, parks, recreation, utilities, finance, public safety, communications, mapping, transit, and administrative expertise, who all served on a technical advisory committee. And the Kansas Department of Transportation and Mid-America Regional Council also provided project guidance. The consulting team was led by Kansas City-based planning and landscape architectural firm Confluence, assisted by Collins, Nodals and Associates specializing in the planning, economic development, and governmental affairs, and Wilson and Company specializing in transportation engineering, and an economic and planning systems provided expertise in real estate development and public sector financing and market and economic analysis. So I'm going to skip now through the rest of this and go to the transportation study itself, or the downtown corridor study itself. And so the following would be the Cliff Notes version of the committee recommendations for the comprehensive plan amendments. And if you did have the opportunity to leaf through that rather large document, there was a very concise CIP and CIE section attached to it. And that is part and parcel of what would be adopted into the comprehensive plan. And we're not going to try and go through that section tonight because that's really way too laborious for tonight's meeting. But it is available for the public and it is on our website for anybody to look at. So the Garden Area Main Street corridor was really, this is the study area that you see on the map, and was originally just along US 56, but it was very quickly recognized that there was a little bit more to the downtown corridor that needed to be included than just the area one block either side of the highway. And so we took into account the land use plans that we currently had, and in reviewing those, we took into account the 116 acres that's directly south of Main Street, which is actually an island of county surrounded by the city, and said that that area needed to be included in that study. So that area was added to the study. The area where the Coleman facility is and the new Excelligence building is being built out to the east was added, as was included the Lowe's property outside the I-35 district along 175 highway, and I refer to it as Lowe's property because that's where we had a project back in 08-09, which unfortunately did not occur, but it had that name. It also includes the elementary schools and the fairgrounds property to the north, because we felt like that recreational area was very important to the community and needed to be vastly included with this project. And then, of course, went out to the airport property to the west end and along 56 highway. So that is the overall area that was there. This was broken into sub-areas, and these 5 sub-areas have unique characteristics to them that provide the organizational framework for the total plan analysis and recommendations. So when you go through the recommendations in the CIP and the CIE, they're broken into these 5 districts. The main district to the east, the large district, of course, takes into the East Gateway, and the overall area that is there is mostly industrial and retail with a small amount of housing to one to the northwest corner. And we then have a Main Street mixed-use sub-area plan, which is where the transition area occurs. This is started by the area along where the new Dairy Queen is located, and then proceeds down to where Big O is, and then it transitions to the downtown core sub-area. And then we have a residential sub-area that's just directly west of that, which is transitioning then into the older part of our community, but it is residential in nature, and it is important to maintain that substance of that area. And then we have the West Gateway area. The primary focus areas of the plan have to do with these 2, the Main Street mixed-use sub-area plan and the downtown core sub-area plan. And the final visioning documents and development of the feasibility analysis focused on these 2 areas and east along Main Street. So the building blocks of the plan that we went through was we had an incredibly wonderful time of public engagement. We had numerous public meetings. We had both a technical advisory committee group and we had a steering committee group. They came up with the initial ideas, refined vision. So this chart flows left to right, top to bottom. That came back. We included the economic and demographic trends, which helped us with forecasting our demand analysis and retail gap study, which is helping us with a future targeted study, which will have to be done to help us identify more distinctly those retail products that we might be needing to bring to our community. The current retail gap analysis just identified the broad overall parameters. We're hoping to get a better targeted survey done as the next phase. That goes back into existing plans of how to rebuild or revision the downtown, how to improve the public infrastructure, how to expand it, and take into account the private citizenry and how we will network and work together to make those improvements to the community. They came up with discussion topics, existing conditions, and the final needs and feasibility analysis. So the recommendations that are coming up are divided into these 4 major areas: transportation and corridor function. This was a transportation and corridor planning grant, so therefore everything we did had to have that as the basis for the reality of the process and also for the actions that were undertaken for that. So as a sidelight, you may recall that Johnson County had a concurrent plan going on for increased bus traffic transportation and to get people both into the downtown of Kansas City and out to the suburbs of the North Park land area for people to be able to go to work out there. And as a result of that, we had some input from them that went into this study that wound up giving us some new bus stops that were separate, but we were able to incorporate some of that thought process into our planning. So we worked with the economic development, the quality of life, and green solutions. And the green solutions, we're trying to take care of those stormwater drainage issues that run along our Main Street corridor, because it happens to be kind of the ridgeline of our community for a double drainage district. And you've recently had a topic of discussion for a stormwater drainage analysis, which is another separate plan, but is very important and part parcel to this. So that is a continuation of both your comprehensive plan planning and how these things are all tied together and how they would function and work together. The quality of life issues, of course, are pretty much clearly cut, and that is, how do we improve the quality of life, improve the shopping, the retail analysis, how do we make this a better community than it is today, and we incorporate those green solutions across those other three areas as we move forward with that. The recommendations of the plan were organized per those four main sections as shown above. I'm sorry, I skipped part of this slide. So those were the four areas that we talked about, and I wanted to touch base on the top right-hand picture of this, which is the proposed visualization of what the Main Street corridor would look like. And you can see in the middle top of that, there is a nice little green median area, which is to help slow down the traffic and help with the public pedestrian infrastructure crossing areas of our downtown area. And that is just one part of the public infrastructure that is proposed for this plan. So the corridor then was divided up into future land use, and this is the future land use that is revised for this area. It's less fragmented and more cohesive in land use groupings than our current land use plan for the entire community. And once this is adopted, this particular piece of the land use would be incorporated into the existing land use map. So there is some differentiation between this map and what we currently have for our downtown core area. This is what the new core area map would look like. So the future land use map expands the core area of mixed use, dark red, to the greater downtown area. It provides additional flexibility for the development and redevelopment of projects within this area. And it includes churches, schools, and other public and semi-public uses which would be supportive for future mixed-use development. And since we have those areas there, we have to make sure that their continued viability and sustainability of those uses are kept in place. Current public and semi-public and recreation uses are to remain consistent with this revised comprehensive plan designation and are therefore not impacted as existing, but have greater opportunity to redevelop. And this was to help us in our discussions with the Fair Board and other public properties that are in the area that could be redeveloped into a more intense land use. The plan implements the new community mixed-use feature land use designation, which is bright pink, and that's the largest area that is on the map, as a replacement of the community commercial designation. And this also provides greater flexibility for future development adjacent or near the corridor. And for example, some single-family residential uses near these planned neighborhood business areas could be redeveloped as mixed uses. An example of that, again, would be what we did with the Dairy Queen, in which you took a closed business area, which was the old car wash that had been closed for some time, took a couple of homes that were along the backside of that property, put all three of those lots together, and then allowed for a new business development use to occur. And that mixed very well with the existing commercial uses along the frontage. And then we did our best to landscape and protect the rest of the residential neighborhood on the south side or the north side of that street. Additional diversity is provided for housing in the Main Street corridor study area for this plan. So to assist the decision-making process for making implementation of the Gardner Main Street corridor plan more simple, the organization recommends that these be divided into project groupings with preliminary cost ranges. And the projects included the downtown core street improvements, and it's very hard to read on this, but there's a very specific list of these items, and they're listed in both the CIP and the CIE that's attached to this document. And Center Street Bridge improvements. And the Main Street is Center Street Bridge improvement is considered really to be one of low-hanging fruit, and we are hoping to be able to implement that pedestrian corridor improvement across the bridge, especially when you consider how many people go back and forth across that bridge to our water park and to the Memorial Park to the south side of town on a daily basis, especially during the 8 months of the year when the weather's very nice. The other projects would be the Main Street residential intersection improvements, which again, of course, increases pedestrian ease of crossing busy streets, and the West Gateway identity improvements, which gets back into our signage characteristics that we've talked about several times for both the east and west corridors. We then get into the East Gateway identity improvements and the Main Street mixed-use improvements, which again are items that have been discussed and go everywhere from signage and wayfinding to identifying those properties that need to be redeveloped and reutilized in a more intense purpose, both for business and housing uses. And then we have the North and South Hall, City Hall improvements. And these are the proposed improvement areas that would act as a greenway corridor from City Hall, both south and north. I would bring your attention to the one that talks about the project to the south, because later on we'll be talking tonight about an improvement to a property for a rezoning that would be, in fact, be one step of a redevelopment of the downtown project. So the comprehensive plan updates that we are going to be bringing to you tonight that are included to this are all mixed through the comprehensive plan, and as a result of many, many hours of hard work by planning staff and by all the many people that took part in these revisions, we bring the following comprehensive plan updates to you. The cover has the new city logo and kind revision dates. This is the 2014 plan that we're talking about the revisions to. The table of contents to Chapter 1, the plan organization, has a new Chapter 12, and the appendix lists all of the plans and they're incorporated by reference. Chapters 4, 5, 9, 10, and 11 are all updated and reference current regulations rather than the former preference recommendations within specific plans, and the notations for the LDC, or Land Development Code, or the MCP, which is the Main Street Corridor Program Code. The Chapter 2 is the community profile. Of course, as our community grows and changes, the profile is updated, and it needs to be updated to reflect the current and recent market analysis report. The public participation chapter is brought up to date, and along with subsequent plans that have been brought to you and approved between the 2014 plan and tonight's offering. The Chapter 5 land use development contains the updated future land use descriptions. Chapter 11 has the implementation aspect of the comprehensive plan, and again, it updates and lists all those recommendations adopted by this and other plans for the Main Street Corridor Plan and the other areas of the sub-area plans that you've recently adopted in the past. And then Appendix A contains all the action plans and the status of those actions, has the correct goals, objectives, and themes addressed on types of actions, and they're all in the page format that goes from left to right as you go across and review those. So the committee recommendation was, of course, to adopt the resolution number PC 18-01 to amend the following portions. I've read through those already. And to apply the regional commercial future land use designation to the cluster of undesignated parcels located at the northwest corner of East 175th Street and Cedar Niles Road. And I don't have a map of that, but if you were to think of, if you were standing at the north end of the Walmart commercial parking lot and look straight north at the landing lights that are across the road that are next to the Kansas Department of Transportation's building, that vacant property that's in between you is this property that we're referring to. That property has and does belong to the Johnson County Airport Authority and the Johnson County Board of Commissioners. That property is under review from the airport as part of their EPA requirement of a total review for the airport to release property for the growth of the airport and add additional acreage for industrial use. This particular piece of property would be for business use and is underneath our reference, and so we need to apply the this designation to it because it was not included in the original study, but it came into us before this came to you, so we wanted to include it for that study. And so there you have the recommended motion. Sorry, I'm getting a little dry. For the adoption of the ordinance and approving the plan that has been presented to you.
Thanks, Larry.
We have Confluence here if you have any questions.
And
I have a question.
well, first we have public comment.
Let the people
go. Any members of the public who would like to make a comment on committee recommendation item number 2, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. With no one coming forward, questions for Larry or for Confluence?
Go for it.
No, go ahead. I insist.
Well, this might take a while.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Come on, Mark.
My first question, at Sycamore in Maine, so directly south of Arvest, that area, from what I could tell from the rest of the plan, there was a lot of infill. But that block, or that half of the block, nothing was addressed as putting, you know, an A block or a B block in the schematics on there, or diagrams. What was the meaning, or why was that left out, or is there future development there that was precluded, or?
The growth area, the differentiation between that one particular block that's not included in either side, the downtown corridor is very well delineated historically as to starting at that block, Sycamore, and going west, and then approximately a block either side of Main Street, or a block and a half, depending on how, or to the railroad tracks to the south. That particular block has been a transitory block. It is basically along Commercial Street under the control of two people. The little greenhouse that's on the corner has recently changed hands, and the property for the rest of the lot was owned by the people that own the doctor's offices and are willing to, already has that basically under a future development plan. As such, we felt like it was already under redevelopment and therefore didn't need to be considered to be part of either the transitory or the downtown. It certainly, those people have been involved in the conversations and were included in all conversations that we had. So they're aware of the plan and have been involved in the all discussions that have occurred about the property in between.
Okay, good, thank you. At the Western Gateway, where you tie in and you have 56 splitting off from 175th, there was a note in the paperwork about how the CARS work, or the CARS grant that we have for the work we're doing this year on 175th there, that we need to revisit that. So the alignment there, since we're at least not yet doing anything with Western Gateway, does that change how we develop that road this year?
175th?
Yeah, right where it breaks off there?
No, that has been predetermined to be pretty much, I mean, those plans are pretty much approved. I should let the Public Works Director talk about those. It's in his ballpark. But the area that we were studying did identify that as one part of the entrance to the gateway. But we also recognize that we're growing west, and so we felt like to put a sign there and say, "Welcome to Gardner," wasn't quite the location, correct location. And so that aspect of a gateway is actually farther west than that particular location. It hasn't been all identified, but it'd be farther west than that particular gateway. So there is a plan in place to improve that intersection, but that's part of the roadway development that's already preliminarily approved.
Okay, but all thought of and addressed already?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. To the north of City Hall, I was trying to figure out how that picture said that there's 22 more spots in this block of parking when you have half of the parking lot as green space. Was that because there was for public parking, because there was also a note about recommending employee parking be off-site and have a shuttle? Or is that total spaces? How was that? How did they get 22 more spaces?
And I should probably have Terry come up and address that if you can, because I don't have that plan in front of my head.
I know I'm asking specific questions.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Terry Burke-Bigler, principal of Confluence. So essentially in that plan, we actually did go out and count all existing parking spaces so that we could do a comparative analysis. And it includes all on-street parking as well as any parking lots that were accounted for in the proposed concept. And it is a bit of a surprise when you think of, a parking lot becoming green space or vice versa. But other than just to say we counted them and there are more spaces without the plan and showing you exactly where there are, I think it's probably the fact that there are more on-street parking spaces available now.
Okay.
So yeah, it is. There are, and it was that you're not the first person to ask. Yeah. So believe me, we checked and double and triple checked that.
Okay, great, thank you. This question might still be for you. It might be for you, Larry. But from Main west to the Gateway, there's talk of in that residential area of having it just be 3 lanes with a dedicated turn lane. from my experience of traveling that every day, it seems like you have a lot more egress that is off to your right than crossing traffic. So while the dedicated turn lane is nice, more people when you're heading west are heading north. They're getting off to the right. So now if you have one lane, that lane is stopping while you wait for that person to turn, not that they're in a turn lane turning left. So
We're referring to 175th Street?
yeah, Main Street.
Okay.
Well, Main Street from here to where it splits.
Yeah, from here west to the split.
Right, whether you're talking about going from 4 lanes to 3.
I can try to answer it, and Michael, maybe you can correct everything I get wrong. And unfortunately, we don't have Wilson, our traffic consultants, with us. I think the best places to start is the I would say sort of the minimum design of roadway that's necessary to accommodate the volume of traffic that moves through the corridor and that is projected to move through the corridor, and that, you know, working with city and KDOT and traffic counts. Those turning movements, you know, left and right, north and south, I think that's just more a matter of, it's a function of moving traffic and what's expected from a functionality standpoint on KDOT's behalf. I don't know, Michael, if there's more to that about maintaining. Is your question about why maintain the left turn lane?
No, it's more that I feel like if you go from the 4 lanes right now, if you're heading west, since so many people, when they're headed home, will get in the right-hand lane and head north.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else gets in that inside lane, keeps on going. If we only have 1 lane there,
okay,
you now slow down traffic.
I got you now. So yes, so the idea is essentially that a right-hand turn shouldn't stop traffic. Yes, it will slow traffic, but the idea of having a left turn is because you do have to stop and wait for passing traffic. So so dropping the lane will still accommodate the volume of traffic that goes through there, but you don't generally have right turn lanes unless you're really going in or out of a high volume area where you might need a deceleration lane or an acceleration lane, but based on the volume and the counts. It was interesting to note the drastic drop off in volume when you get west of center. And I don't have those numbers here, but it was significant, and that's just what our traffic engineers felt with KDOT would accommodate it.
That means the same for if you're heading east and you want to turn south onto center, that we didn't need a dedicated right-hand turn lane there.
Well, and I'm not sure that we changed the geometry at center at the intersection. Yeah, that'll stay as what's there today.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
It transitions farther west.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Good question, though.
Thank you. Go for it.
All right, so Center Street Bridge, you brought it up, there was a slideshow there, so I don't know if you can go back to it, but it said like 225,000 for an upgrade. And I was just wondering, is that upgrading what's already there? I just wanted some more details on.
Essentially, that would be for enhancing the pedestrian pathway.
Okay.
Widening that.
Right,
So the
just
proposal on hand is to reposition the barrier, which I say reposition, remove and replace a new barrier that would provide a wider pedestrian way. As you look at it now, if you look at it very narrow, we're able to add another 3 feet without.
How would we go about doing that? Is there, just basically putting in piers and?
Well, it can be done on the deck.
On the deck.
On the existing deck. So we don't have to widen the existing bridge structure. We can just move the barrier over on top of the existing deck.
Okay.
So that's, from a cost standpoint, when Larry mentions low-hanging fruit, that really is.
Right, well, that's what I wondered.
Yeah.
I figured there was a way to engineer it, because it's not like it's that much extra weight, so.
And that still needs to be engineered, but based on early estimates and conceptually thinking with Wilson's input, it appears that can be achieved that way.
Are we gonna run into any, I guess there's probably less ADA issues on that because we're widening it than we'd have, because the angle. I mean, it's such a steep incline, I know, but unless we're completely gutting it and starting over, that's when we run into a problem.
Correct, sir. We are actually addressing some of our ADA concerns with widening it.
Right.
We really can't do anything with the arch of the bridge without a total replacement, which is not reasonable.
No, I understand. That the cost on that would be astronomical. And we close the couple streets too, both directions.
Yeah.
I would say, if I might, that that project is included in our future CIP, and we have applied for some grant funding for that particular project.
Great, thank you.
I just want to say thank you. was at most of the meetings for the last year and a half or so and learned a ton through you and your group, as well as Wilson and the others, as well as the DOT guys that showed up. And I thought we had a great mix of both residents as well as business owners in the community. And I just appreciate you guys, you know, helping us out. I know the Mark study financially helped us, as well as the city contribution, but I really think this is a off-the-shelf item that we can truly utilize. And if I'm not mistaken, Terry, you guys took the last 20 years of dust collectors and implemented into this and considered lessons learned and money spent from the past. And I really think this is a marathon look forward with some sprints in the middle.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate y'all's help and efforts and patience with everybody. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, we appreciate the opportunity, and you're right. We couldn't start from scratch. There's been too many conversations that have occurred over the years, and so we were able to learn from, I don't remember how many prior documents, but don't throw them out.
No.
There's still a lot of good info. We didn't just copy and paste. There's still good info that needs to be referred back to. And you know, we've talked about it. One of the things that we feel really great about is the fact that there seems to be some good conversations going with the Fair Board.
Yeah, I remember that, and I think that's encouraging.
Yeah. So that's a great opportunity for the city.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you, Terry. Thank you, Larry, for all your assistance in this. And I know there were several other members of senior staff that were heavily involved in this, including Parks and Rec and Public Works, and Finance was also involved with this to a certain extent. So I want to thank staff for stepping up and answering the call when we've had to have meetings, discussions on these particular plans. This is a weighty document, but I think it's one that's going to be critical to our future for the at least next 20 years. So thank you. With that, I will entertain a motion on the ordinance number 2574.
Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Winters, that we adopt, I got to read this out here, adopt ordinance number 2574, approving the Planning Commission adopted amendments to the comprehensive plan for the city of Gardner, Kansas, amending the cover page, Chapter 1, Introduction, Chapter 2, Community Profile, Chapter 3, Public Participation, Chapter 4, Vision, Goals and Objectives, Chapter 5, Land Use and Development, Chapter 9, Image and Identity, Chapter 10, Sustainability Framework, Chapter 11, Implementation, and Appendix A, Action Table of the City of Gardner Comprehensive Plan and adopting the Gardner Main Street Corridor Plan and Gardner Main Street Corridor Market Analysis. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Gregorczyk?
Yes.
Councilman Belton?
Yes.
Councilman Winters?
Yes.
Councilman Baldwin?
Yes.
Ordinance number 2574 passes.
You should have read the whole thing in.
Yeah, we'll be here till next week. You want that? I'll be happy to.
Hey man, we're getting paid, right?
Not enough. All right, next agenda item, committee recommendation item number 3. Consider an ordinance approving a rezoning R5 Planned Apartment District and C1 Central Business District to CP1 Planned Central Business District and Preliminary Development Plan for Warren Place Development located at 122, 103, and 136 East Warren Street. Hello, Larry. I hope you got some water there after that long presentation.
Not yet, sir, but we'll get by. So what we have before you tonight is actually the opportunity for the council to take action on what could be one of the first developments that would be following the actions you just took, which would be the rezoning of a parcel of property of application Z18-02 and preliminary development plan 18-02, a rezoning and a preliminary development plan for 122, 130, and 136 East Warren Street, parcel ID CP9000000-0040 and CP9-0000000 space 0052 and CP900000000- or hyphen or space 0046, and CP 9-00000000-0056, and preliminary development plan dated March 5th and March 15th, 2018, and staff report dated March 27th, 2018. The Planning Commission recommends the governing body approve the application provided the following conditions are met. One, that the parcels are combined through the preliminary and final plat processes prior to the issuance of a building permit. And two, that a minimum 5-foot wide sidewalk for the parking space in the rear of the event hall to the rear door be added. So basically what we have is, you probably are familiar with this, this is the old Catholic church. The parsonage or manse or rectory, whichever you prefer to use, that was the living quarters behind, and then the recreational hall that's adjacent to the property, and then a vacant property to the east end of the recreational hall. We have two main zonings. We have an R5 and a C1. They're rezoning it all to CP1 for the purposes of allowing the property to be reconfigured into a business format, and that format would be basically to be a meeting center, activity center. The church would be repurposed into a location for weddings and ceremonies and meetings of other types. The living property would be used as a temporary guest headquarters for those people renting the property, and then the property for the remainder of the property would be the meeting space for the downtown. And then there are some changes in the parking and some additions, and also a removal of some parking along the front of the church, which is along Center Street, as that recommendation needed to get that parking out of the way so as traffic comes up and down the bridge, it doesn't have people backing into the street. So basically, the recommendation of the council of the Planning Commission was to approve the ordinance 2575 and approve the rezoning of Z-1802 and associated preliminary development plan PDP-1802 for Warren Place. And this comes with a very high staff recommendation for approval, and also a very high approval from the Planning Commission, who debated the project and talked about it a long time, and felt it is a vast improvement and opportunity for the community. There are people here to answer questions for you about the project if you have any questions about how the project would be moving forward.
Thanks, Larry. Any public comment on committee recommendation item number 3? With no one coming forward, questions, any comments from council?
I think it's a great opportunity, so I'm really excited to see it, so I can't wait.
I would agree with Todd. It's wonderful, and I think it's a great addition, and I think it's going to be utilized for the right reasons with love and care, so I'm excited.
I watched the Planning Commission video, and they were pretty thorough in their analysis and noise complaints and parking and so forth, so I'm satisfied.
Okay. For my part, it's great to see this property being developed and being restored, and that's the more important thing, is that it's been a part of downtown Gardner for darn close to 100 years now. Over. Mm-hmm. And so that allows us to maintain the character of that area of the town, and I'm looking forward to having another events venue in our city. So with that, I will entertain a motion on committee recommendation item number 3.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Baldwin, that we adopt ordinance 2575 approving the rezoning Z-18-02 and associated preliminary development plan PDP-18-02 for Warren Place. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Melton?
Yes.
Councilman Winters?
Yes.
Councilman Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilman Gregorczyk?
Yes.
Mayor Shute?
Yes. Committee recommendation item number 3 passes. I'm looking forward to seeing that redevelopment of Warren Place. Yep. All right, new business item number 1. Consider an ordinance annexing land adjacent to Gardner Lake and Lake Lot 15421. Larry.
Mayor, Council, this is a kind of a unique request that we've had, and one which we welcome. It's a request to annex 3,114 square feet of property owned by Christopher Stuber was received by the Business and Economic Development Department on April 4th, 2018. And this property was purchased by the City of Gardner for the purpose of expanding the home lot located along Gardner Lake, and the property was declared surplus by the city and sold to the family. And since then, the family's determined they wish to expand their house, which was already inside the city limits of Gardner. So this property adjoins lands that's already in the City of Gardner and therefore can be annexed upon receipt of the voluntary annex request from the property owner, which we have received, along with a declaration of land ownership and a survey of the property to establish the legal description of the property. This will allow them to, after the annexation, to plat the property into one plat, one piece of property, and then that will give them enough property to legally expand the house, which is what they wish to do, to build onto it and make it a little bit larger. And this will complete that process for them. So our recommendation is to accept the annexation request and to approve the ordinance and order the publication of the ordinance once approved.
Thanks, Larry. Any public comment on news business item number 1? No one coming forward. Any questions from council? Okay, sounds like it's pretty cut and dried. Thank you, Larry. I'd like to entertain a motion on new business item number 1.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Winters, second Baldwin, that we accept the annexation request of Christopher James Stuber and adopt ordinance number 2576, an ordinance annexing land adjacent to Gardner Lake and Lake Lot 15421. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Winters?
Yes.
Councilman Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilman Gregorczyk?
Yes.
Councilman Melton?
Yes.
Ordinance 2576 passes. New business item number 2, consider approving the city's contribution to health, dental, and vision insurance premiums for the 2018-19 plan year.
Good evening,
Alan Abramowitz.
Mayor and Council. We'll be discussing the city's contribution to the city's health, dental, and vision insurance for the plan year that begins July 1st. So I'd like to start first with background information. As you know, an important component of priority-based budgeting process is to evaluate previous budget decisions. And following input from the Employee Engagement Committee in 2016, the council approved increased funding to 80% of all health insurance plans and continued 100% funding of the high deductible single plan to provide additional affordable choices to employees, and also included funding for the wellness program. Since then, Council continued the 80% funding level for all plans except, of course, a high deductible plan, and for the 2017-2018 plan year to continue providing affordable employee choice. However, the council incentivized participation in the high deductible plans by increasing the city funding for the high deductible plans to 82% versus 80%, and increasing upfront funding of the HSA to fully cover deductibles, thus further encouraging employee wellness. So that was $1,500 for individual HSAs and $3,000 for family. For the 2018-2019 plan year, the MPR Board of Directors approved the specific plan increases that you see on the CAF. And those are 8.2% for the amounts to the PPO, 10.6% for the in-network only, which is like an HMO of 10.6%, and then the high deductible of 9.9%. And I might say that these are very high increases this year because MPR, the members, certain members at least, had what's considered a bad year as far as a lot of claims. From my understanding, there were a lot of several premature babies that of course costs a lot, and some other issues. So just to give you an example, in the past, increases were like 4 to 6%, and on the high deductible plans, they were as low as 2.4 or 3.5%. So this is quite an increase. However, Gardner's utilization rate was less than 75%. So the city actually received a 1% rate discount on all plans. So as you can see, rather than 8.2%, Gardner's increase is 7.2%. And rather than 10.6, it's 9.6 for the in-network only, and for the high deductible, it's 8.9 rather than 9.9. So the council has continued to fund the city's robust 7-step wellness program, which received the Healthy KC Silver Level Certification Award from the Kansas City Area Chamber of Commerce. Currently, 96% of employees participate in the wellness program, perhaps contributing to the insurance utilization rate of less than 75% and earning a 1% reduction in premiums. So staff is recommending tonight to approve the city's continued contribution to the employees' health insurance premiums of 100% to the high deductible health plan, that's the HDHP, for the single coverage, an amount equal to 82% of the high deductible for a high deductible plan for family and tier 2, equating to $463.54 for single, $882.17 for tier 2, and $1,045.86 for family. And continue to fund employees' health savings accounts up front at $1,500 for single and $3,000 for tier 2 and family. And continue the city's contributions to the OAP 750, which is a PPO-like plan, and the in-network only, similar to the HMO plans, to the amount equivalent to 80% of the premiums. So for the OAP 750, the city would contribute $573.46 for the single, $1,318.05 for tier 2, and $1,547.94 for family. For the in-network only one, the city would contribute $590.45 for single, $1,394.34 for tier 2, and $1,557.89 for family. And then for the INO2, the city would contribute $526.75 for single, $1,244.99 for tier 2, and $1,393.42 for family. And continue the contribution to employees' vision insurance premiums at 100% and 80%, equating to $7.92 for single, $12.67 for tier 2, and $18.11 for family coverage. And then this year, begin contributing 50% of dental insurance premiums at $17.94 for single and $44.68 for family. Now you might ask, why are we going to start contributing to the dental insurance? Well, in my investigation and talking to my counterparts at other cities, we were really about the only city, or the only city that I found that did not contribute anything. So for instance, Blue Springs, they contribute anywhere from 88 to 65%, Derby 85%, Grandview 50%, Merriam, 85%. Johnson County, somewhere between 79 and 81%, and then Johnson County Parks, somewhere between 100% to 61%. And Gladstone, 88%. It goes on like that. So we thought it was appropriate to, for our employees to be on an equal basis with these other individuals. So now the financial impact. Based on continuing the current employer health insurance contributions, the city will experience an $83,500 increase for the 2018 estimate revised budget across all funds, or 5.75%. For the general fund, the increase is $27,600, or 3%. Based on current participation, Council's approval to pay 50% of dental insurance premium is estimated at $44,000 across all funds, and the impact to the general fund is estimated at $28,500. So employees will experience a full rate increase for each health insurance plan in their share of the health insurance premiums. However, the council's approval to contribute to dental insurance premiums will offset those increases, thus demonstrating continued investment in employees and enhancing recruitment and retention capabilities. So just to give you some information, the average increase to the employees will be around $21.75, and of course with the dental insurance, those people that have employee-only dental, that would be a savings of $17.94 if you funded at 50%, and a savings of $44.68 if you for family coverage. Okay. So I know those were a lot of numbers and everything, but I was just trying to copy Larry there with all of his information.
You did a good job there.
Of course, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Alan. Any public comment on new business item number 2? I was thinking employees would come up and speak about the wellness program. All right, with no one coming forward, questions from the council?
I'll be curious to see the utilization of the dental 50%, because they will still have to come up with the other 50%, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. It'd be interesting to see if we approve that.
Well, right now there's about 100, I believe 103 people, employees enrolled in the dental insurance. So that's about 76% of the employees. So we do have a high level now, but it could go up.
Have we ever looked at incentivizing them to use somebody else's dental? I mean, is that cheaper for us? Like if they're seeing their spouse or?
In my opinion, by not paying for the dental insurance, we were incentivizing them to use others.
Yes.
So.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if it was worth $100 to go, hey, go use somebody else's.
Well, I'm assuming NPR as a pool provider is probably better than a lot of private plans are. So I mean, they probably did
Depends
some
on who your private plan.
research. Well, if it's an individual
like
plan,
Mark, you know, he living high on the hog over there, Garmin. They got everything.
All right, so here's I got a quick question.
Okay.
Randy, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. My question is this: what's the percentage of employees now that are using the HDHP versus the other two plans?
Okay, let's see here. If I
know it's gone up, but I'd like to know by how much.
Let's see, I'm not sure I have that number here. Let's see.
The entire industry is starting to move towards the self-directed HDHP plan.
Yeah, I don't have that, but for sure the far majority of our employees do use the HDHP, but unfortunately I don't have that. Do you happen to have that number available?
See if we had last year's.
Yeah.
You asked that question last year. It didn't. That's why you incentivized it a little bit more.
Correct.
There wasn't that many people left to move to it.
Okay.
but I'm looking, I don't have.
Let's see.
We haven't happened yet, right?
Correct.
Because this is the new plan year and we have open enrollment coming.
That's correct. We went through open enrollment last year in July.
Right, and I go.
Well, wait a minute, I do have that here.
good.
I do have it.
Great, thanks.
So we have 98 people in the HDHP. We have 16 people in the INO1, 5 people in the INO2, and 7 people in the PPO plan.
Okay. So here's my question. Does it make any sense to start to de-incentivize individuals who are in those other plans, which are inherently more expensive? They're more costly to the city. They're also more costly to the employee. To start moving folks even more into the HDHP by maybe incentivizing HDHP even more and starting to de-incentivize by lowering the contribution amount in those other plans.
Well, I would be, it would make sense to raise the HDHP. Now, if we lowered, if you recall last year,
Yep.
we examined that, and 80% was pretty much right in the middle of what other people were paying or
Correct.
contributing. So we would fall down towards the bottom if we lowered the 80%, but surely we could go up in the HDHP maybe to 85%.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. What I'm thinking is that we increase the HDHP and intentionally lower the contributions. Well, because of the fact that it's going to cost us more money. What we're trying to do is trying to do an offset here. So if we're going to be increasing company incentive for HDHP, it would make sense then to lower the company contribution for the INO 1 and 2 and the PPO as a incentive to move them towards the HDHP.
Why don't we just leave the HDHP at 80% and then move the other ones, adjust the other ones accordingly?
Well, that's at 82%.
It's at 82%.
It's at 82% right
Is the history there that we did 100% for the single and only 82% for the family, both for the HDP, because that's what we could afford at the time, instead
Yes.
of 100% for both?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, we want, I think there was a push, I think staff wanted to move it to 85, we moved it to 82 as a compromise. So I would like to move to 85 now.
But the goal was 100%.
The goal is to get 100% of our employees, into the HDHP. And one of the reasons why is because it translates better in the marketplace. The marketplace itself is moving towards self-directed HDHP. That's where the marketplace is going, and especially with the ACA. That's kind of where it's starting to move. And so giving the consumer that discretion over those funds actually does allow us to be able to stretch those dollars further.
Now, on those cities I mentioned, they're all at 80–85%, even higher than that. Some go into the 90%.
Correct.
For the non-HDHP.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I could see that the employees that are on the family PPO being incentivized to go to the HDP, but those on the HMO type plan are going to have less incentive to go there regardless, because if you have some significant event for the year, a baby for instance, even with the HDP and the city putting in $3 grand, you're maxed.
Well, yeah, but that's where the 85% comes in. Now you're talking about paying no more than 15% of the pocket.
Understood, but
there's
going to be a gap there for a lot of those families, and that's why they're going to choose the HMO type plan over an HDP sometimes, not always.
We had 3 kids under an HDHP, so
I'm not saying it can't be done.
It can be done.
There's a reason that, if you run the scenario and say I'm going to have this and I have this many prescriptions and et cetera,
correct.
You can tell which plan will put you in the best in out-of-pocket dollars for the year for a given employee. And so regardless of what the incentive is, there's still going to be some that have a choice to say I'm going to go this way because of the coverage for those dollars.
Sure.
So that's general response been positive amongst employees to what we're currently
Very
offering?
positive.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the way it is.
So, so Mark's perspective was from the employee. That'd be fair. So from the employer's perspective, what's the net gain by going to what the mayor has suggested?
Going up
Financially.
3%. Yeah.
Because there's so many variable plans. I mean,
Sure.
There's single, family, and tier two.
Right, exactly.
I wouldn't be able to do that without actually doing it.
Sure.
You've worked enough weekends, so just lay low.
That's fine.
It would
I mean,
take a while.
I'm okay with keeping it the way it is, but I also think we need to start thinking about, okay, well, how do we, encourage more employees to move to the HDHP?
Well-
Because it saves everybody money. It saves the city money. It saves the employee money in the long run because you have to pay lower premiums.
What we need to do is have Danica pump that out to everybody, that you need
So-
to switch over, because Steve wants you to.
So, actually, Danica has written something for me already. So currently, there's about 78% of those employees who enrolled in health insurance are with the HDHP. So
Correct.
it really is a pretty high number right now.
Yeah.
To your point of trying to move the employee in a direction, Laura, is there anything from our insurance provider when they come in, or an analysis? Do they do anything, or Alan, do you, where you have set a spreadsheet or something that pulls up all of your EOBs from the previous year or 3 years, and you analyze, here's really the plan you should have been on, here's the plan that you want to be on if you do X this year?
We will, well, I don't personally do it, but we will. The MPR will help them do that, as well as the people that enroll them will help them make that decision.
But is that only if they ask, or is it already?
Yeah, it's only if they
I'm just
they
thinking it
ask.
might be nice if
Yeah.
they saw the analysis to actually go, because there might be something they don't know as to why they're choosing one versus the other.
Now, we do have, in fact, our meeting is scheduled for May the 1st this year, a meeting for all employees where the plans, all of this is explained to them, and then the plan, what plans cover are reviewed with them in very much detail. Now, it's not an individual review, but they go through each plan, and this is what's covered, this is what's not covered, and so on.
Yeah. The other thing I'm thinking of from a health insurance perspective within the industry is that the fewer people that participate in these plans means the higher rate increases are going to go into those plans ultimately, because it's a smaller pool of individuals, therefore families, therefore it's going to make it more expensive for everybody in that pool. Ultimately, I think that we do need to look at, how we're going to.
Well, that's why we're in MPR and not out on our own, because it would be way too expensive.
It wouldn't work, but I mean, even in the pool providers, including NPR, you're starting to see that shift.
Right.
So I think that we need to get ahead of that if we can, and try to incentivize participation in HDHP as quickly as possible, or as much as possible. So
I guess it's really your decision.
well, it's not my decision, it's the council's
Well,
decision.
council's
but
decision.
If you guys want to stay where we're at, we can do that, but I think the next year we need to start looking at this much more in depth.
I think we need to just, this year we can stay the same, but over the next year, we just start telling people, hey, we'd like to move out of these things.
Yeah, because
to save the city and the, people money.
I know a lot of providers that are even getting rid of their HMO coverage completely to move to these other plans, so.
Yeah, the county got rid of HMO.
Well, I think at the end of the day, the key is having that analysis for the employees so that they can see how it benefits them. At the end of the day, it's what hits their pocketbook.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right,
So
exactly.
the coverage for dollars, that's all they care about. So what we discuss, they've got to see that in black and white.
Yeah, we have a cost calculator, to Mark's point. And it kind of, you pick plan A, and then it calculates what you project your coverage is going to need to be, like, you have a baby come in or a major surgery or something.
Modeling.
Oh, yeah, thank you. What kind of feedback do we get from staff during the enrollment period?
Well, I really haven't received any negative feedback from them. I think in the last couple of years, for many years, the coverage, the city's contribution was well below 80%. So the fact that it went up to 80 and 82%, they were very happy about that. And so from that standpoint, that was good. Now, I might also say we do have in the booklet we hand out at the meeting I told you about, we do have this like medical cost worksheet in the booklet, and also this plan cost worksheet. So they are able to do that, and they have probably about a week to work on this.
Do we have an individual from NPR that comes in and helps
Yes.
with that presentation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think that's the key, because
Education.
I mean, that worksheet, you know, that's like when you're doing your taxes and at the end you're like, oh, what am I going to set my W-4 to? You know?
Right.
Yeah. Well, you need to see what you did last year, right?
Yep.
So the actual analysis is the key. I mean, you don't know what you don't know.
Correct.
Right.
All right.
I agree.
Well, having said all that, I think consensus is that we move with the existing recommendations. Okay.
So moved.
Well, I didn't have a motion yet.
Nobody's
My
even
goodness.
pushing. Come on.
We have a motion on new business item number 2. You just said so moved, right?
Second.
All right. Motion Winters, second Gregorczyk, that we approve the city's contributions to health, vision, and dental insurance premiums for the 2018-19 plan year. These are all dollar amounts noted in staff recommendation above. 100% for CF 1500 single HDHP, 82% of CF 1500 HDHP tier 2 and family, 80% contribution for all of the health insurance plans, and to fund HSAs upfront at 1,500 for single and 3,000 for tier 2 and family. Those are not changing from last year. And contribute to employees' vision insurance premium at 100% for single and 80% for tier 2 and family, and contribute 50% of dental insurance premiums. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? New business item number 2 passes. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
New business item number 3, consider authorizing the city administrator to enter an agreement with JPM Enterprises LLC, doing business as Great Life Golf and Fitness, to operate the Gardner Golf Course. Ryan Dank, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. We have before you tonight the draft operating and lease agreement with Great Life, and I'll give you a brief summary of that. The basic terms of the agreement are that the length of the agreement it's for a duration of 10 years with 2 5-year renewals. The proposed city improvements are what we've talked about previously. That is replacement of the irrigation system. The next item on your agenda is the RFP relating to the replacement of that irrigation system. And Jason's going to talk to you about that, what that bid came back at. In addition, the city is required under the operating agreement to contribute $290,000 with respect to providing of sod, seed, bridge repairs, and improvements to the irrigation pond. With respect to the operator's obligations under the operating agreement, generally speaking, the operator is required to improve the overall conditions of the Gardner Golf Course in a number of ways. They're going to replace the tee boxes, and by replace, I think they're going to do some grading. They're going to resod everything. They're going to stripe sod all the fairways. Excuse me, repair and expand the greens on the front 9. Again, this is for a 9-hole operation. They are also agreeing to rehabilitate the green approaches and improvement of the rough area and the bunkers during the duration of the agreement. As part of the requirements of the operator under the agreement, they're required to provide equipment and labor and to pay all operating expenses required for the operation of the golf course. We did, specifically in response to our last operating agreement that we had with our prior operator, include some maintenance standards. Those are attached as Exhibit A to the agreement. If you've read through the draft operating agreement, there is a period of time, understandably because of the rather poor conditions out of the Gardner Golf Course for them to get up to those minimum standards, and we've given them 3 years to get up to that period of time. So that's a brief summary. I did want to note that I did receive communication from our bond counsel today, and specifically a phone conference this afternoon relating to the financing of the debt that the city's proposing to come up with the roughly $1.1+ million in financing for this. I think, as you may recall, as the deal has evolved, the types of financing have evolved. I think originally we were looking at a tax-exempt deal. Then when we kind of came to the realization the city wasn't interested in bearing the risk of loss on this, and you know, on the flip side of that for Great Life, they really wanted the upside, the potential for profit, probably on the back end of the deal. The first few years are obviously going to have significant expenditures, so that did not lend itself to a tax-exempt deal. When we were looking at a tax-exempt deal, we're looking at certificates of participation. Don't ask me what those are. Right. That's why we have bond counsel. This stuff's complicated, and so bond counsel has looked at numerous different financing options based on the structure of the deal and all that type of stuff. There was a request from bond counsel today, which I reached out to Great Life's counsel this afternoon, and they have requested some non-substantive, really some terminology, my understanding, changes in the agreement. I will say, you know, this kind of came as a surprise to me as well, but I will say that it was contemplated all along that we were going to have to kind of massage this deal to accommodate the financing, and there's even a provision in the operating lease agreement in paragraph 5 that specifically contemplates that and makes the city's obligations under the agreement, and actually both parties' obligations under the agreement, contingent upon the city being able to obtain and acquire financing. So what I would propose, because it is kind of an 11th hour request from bond counsel, is that we go ahead and approve this tonight, subject to any proposed revisions as recommended by bond counsel to enable financing to go through, and of course with the consent of Great Life. Again, the intent is not to change any of the substantive terms. It's primarily a matter of formatting to enable financing to go through. So with that, I'd be happy to attempt to field any questions that you might have, or that the public might have.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan. Any public comment on new business item number 3? Well, the golfers would be here tonight. Without anybody coming forward, questions from council for either Ryan or Jason?
I have a couple quick questions. Do we have any idea on what these bridge repair costs are going to be? I mean, I know there's some pretty extensive damage out there. And
oh yeah.
We had a company come in last week. Lochner did an assessment on the 3 front 9 bridges. We received their report on Friday, and so this morning I got with our Public Works Director, and we are going to assess repair costs that we could possibly do in-house.
Okay.
And then outside of that, see what there's some welds and things that we want to make sure we do right.
Okay. The other existing code violations that are out there too, do we have any idea on the repair cost on those, or?
I think a lot of those have been remediated already.
Have they?
Yeah.
Yes, like the removal of the house.
Right.
That was one of the big ones.
Okay.
And one of
the equipment shed.
The equipment shed, correct.
Okay. All right. The other thing is, it references I think DeSoto in the contract here.
Right.
Is that correct? What is the net revenue for the DeSoto? I guess that's more of a question for you guys, just so we know kind of what the potential revenue would be for us, because I'm noticing in the first 5 years it's $10 a year, which I mean that's what we're getting paid for the lease, and then it's $1 for each round after. 5 years after that.
5 years, yeah.
Yeah, Great Life would have to comment on that. The reference to the DeSoto facility in the agreement is really designed not to reference kind of the revenues or the expenses, but to kind of plant a flag in the ground as to the standards
The
to
expectation,
which
right.
the course will be maintained.
And that's what I was glad to see that because we didn't have that before.
Right.
Or there was no.
Well, and in addition to that's kind of a general guideline. Then we have the very specific
Right.
performances. You know, I know that, and rightfully so, I think Great Life in the past, with respect to their past revenues, I think they consider that to be kind of a trade secret or
I guess.
confidential information.
I understand, and I understand that.
But if
I'm
they
just-
want to share that, they can.
I mean, is there a ballpark you guys can give me? Because I'm trying to justify, I'm trying to justify almost $1.2 million versus what is the potential here for any kind of
cost
recovery ROI? I'm not expecting it to be straight across, but I got to
absolutely. I believe in 2017, the Burning Tree in DeSoto did roughly just under 400,000.
Okay.
Now, it's going to be a little hard to.
What, like yours is a walking through the door thing where it's $1 a person?
That's total revenue with memberships and all
Right,
that.
right.
And we do have a fitness center in DeSoto.
Uh-huh.
So it's going to be a little bit off, but we foresee this place being busier than DeSoto. I mean, we're pretty confident of it.
Okay. But like what should we expect on how many rounds though? Because if we're getting $1 per round.
Did we look up the rounds? I don't remember everything from just, I gave that to Brian and what
Yeah, they provided to me rounds played by greens fee rather than by membership.
Okay.
And I think, what's that?
Was it 75?
Yeah, I don't recall. But, to kind of jump to the point on this, I think in our discussions with Jason and my earlier discussions with Matt, we did not look at this as a revenue generator for the city.
I agree. I'm just making sure it's, when we put out that kind of money, we got to make sure that we're getting something back. I mean, because we were
Right.
getting like 1,000 a year out of the Powells, I think, weren't we? Wasn't that what we were getting, Laura? Was it 1,200?
I think at the end, I don't think we were getting anything.
I mean, I don't think.
It was pretty much what I would say immaterial.
No, I get it. I know.
And I think it's still going to be immaterial. I mean, $1 a round.
I know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is
I mean, I think this is not
I can add some more color to it. In looking around at other municipal golf courses in the city, for the most part, municipalities are subsidizing those above and beyond their operations.
This is our big subsidy right now, guys.
So here, what the situation was where they're taking on all of that risk, and asking. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, that course looks very little like a golf course right now.
Oh, I know.
And we haven't invested in the last 30 years.
Right.
So this is where we pay the piper.
I get, and that's where I'm going. And just out of curiosity, what is a membership at your like one of your other facilities, minus I guess the athletic portion?
We don't break them down that way. We have,
Okay.
we have one membership that entails both.
Okay.
I believe, can't tell exactly, but I believe at Burning Tree in DeSoto, we ran between 15 and 17,000 rounds this past year in 2017. So that's, and I'm assuming will be similar to that here, if not more.
Maybe year 2,
Okay.
Yeah, obviously
Right,
not first
right,
year.
first
It's gonna
year.
take a little
I'd be
bit.
really impressed if you got that
Yeah, I
first
mean,
year.
I foresee 15,000 rounds to be pretty
Okay.
easy standard to get to.
And then what is that cost for the membership? Like if I was going to come out there and join, because my membership works at any of your other ones, right?
Some of the Kansas City courses are a different tier, but for the most part, it's $34 for a single membership, and it's 40.
Is that a month?
That's per month, and it's $44 for a full family, and that's at most of our places, and that's unlimited golf and unlimited fitness.
That's okay.
And we are still working on getting a fitness center local. I mean, we haven't given up on that, but the golf course is going to be a significant challenge this first year.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm going to do some math here real quick.
That's
what I was waiting for.
That's okay. Yes.
I've got a question. So
the agreement spells out what you're gonna do in the first 3 years to get it going, and et cetera, and bunkers and fairways, I got all that. But tell me, not something that's going into the agreement, but what do you foresee as a goal, a vision for 5 and 10 years? What do you want to do with it? Do you want to have a lighted driving range? Do you want to open the back 9? Do you want to, you know, improve the practice green? What do you want to do?
All of the above, absolutely. The driving range, once we get the agreement, we will be ordering all new driving range equipment, new balls, new pickers, new range ball cleaner. There's some lights down at Lake of the Ozarks that I've put a couple offers on. They've been shot down so far, but they still haven't sold. So I can foresee a lighted driving range with, you know, automatic buckets, you know, automatic dispensers out front so that they can be used after dark, after we're closed. We've already had discussions for couples nights, men's leagues, senior leagues, ladies nights. I really do foresee being busy enough to bring the back 9 in play in 3 to 5 years. I mean, but it would need some help from the city again. So we'll just have to discuss that at a future time.
Yeah, I see here there's an intention to build a youth academy. That's similar to what they have at DeSoto and Ottawa.
Well, so specifically with that, will you support the Youth on Course program? Do you know what I'm talking about?
We have not reached out to the First Tee yet. We have reached out to Gardner-Edgerton High School to invite them to play for free. We started a junior golf program in DeSoto from scratch. We had to start an Optimist Club in DeSoto because they do back junior golf. Stephanie was the president of that. My brother's vice president, I believe. And right now we can handle about 60 kids, and we turn down between 15 and 20 kids a year just because that's all we can handle. And we've started that from zero.
Well, and that's great. Yeah. But with the Youth on Course, it's not so much about a program and an academy as it is just coming out for a round, but they get, it's a $5 fee if they have their card. And it gets subsidized through the KCGA, basically. Okay. Well, and the Watson Foundation. I just didn't know if that's something that the course would be open to being a member of. Absolutely, absolutely.
Originally, we kind of talked about building a little 3 or 4 hole junior golf program only course. Since then, I think some disc golf people have reached out to the city to see if they can utilize that back 9. And our goal, if we did bring that junior golf kind of a little course into play, would be free golf for anybody under 12, anybody under 13. I don't know where the cutoff would be. Provide free balls, free clubs, a little 3 or 4 hole, just a little short course for them to bring. Golf is at a kind of a crossroads right now. We need young people playing golf. We really do. We have lots of older people playing golf and mid-age people. We need some more young people playing golf. And we have been. We are going to reach out to the First Tee program after once we get that thing settled. And I've been in the golf business in this area for about 30 years now, so I got a lot of connections. So that is something we are going to reach out to.
We're looking forward to that. Anything else?
Just curious on Exhibit A, the detailed standards. I'm just curious where those standards came from.
The original draft, and obviously it was modified through back and forth negotiations with the operator, came from the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America. Perfect. And so, and they had some standard ones on there, and they had the caveat that, hey, you're going to have to modify it to those standards that, your climate, your really how much money you want to spend on the course and all that type of stuff. So.
Okay. I was just going to ask Jason, it talks about a quarterly update from Great Life. When that's received, is that something that could be put out in the Friday memo to us?
Yes, we could include that.
And then as all these updates are made to the course, would it be possible to have a before and after and transition picture? Here's the tee box today. Here it is 6 months from now. Here it is 3 years from now. Here's what we did.
Absolutely, and we would welcome a monthly visit, a quarterly visit, a semi-year, we would welcome that greatly. I mean, whether that's with Jason, whether that's with somebody else. I mean, we have nothing to hide. I mean, we're going to be proud of this golf course. I mean, we really are. And I get a kick out of improving it. I mean, I really do. I mean, I would rather work on a golf course than play golf. It's bad, but I really would. So we welcome.
I totally understand.
We really welcome a monthly walkthrough visit with Matt or any representative you guys have. So.
Yeah, I don't play a golf course. The golf course usually plays me.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
But I totally understand and appreciate that. I would like to. It's good. It's good to have that chronology too.
Yeah, and we have taken lots of before pictures. I mean, we have taken, and we're got somebody there full time right now. I mean, we're keeping the greens alive as we speak. So
and we appreciate that too.
We've started transplanting sod from the back 9 to the front 9. So I mean, we're ready to hit the ground running. So.
Yeah. What is the current cost of, like, if I was going to go play around in DeSoto?
Right now we're at $22. $22 for 18 holes with a cart.
Okay.
We foresee starting Gardner at probably $18 with a cart because there's going to be construction going on. Mm-hmm. And just to be honest, the course isn't worth. That's what the course is worth. I mean, it just is. And I just foresee topping out when the course is in the shape I want it to be. Probably topping out at $25 with a cart. I mean, we don't want to compete with Prairie Highlands. We don't want to compete with Falcon Ridge. That's not who we want to compete with.
Right.
You know, we just affordable golf in the air.
Just for the 9, right?
That's 18 holes.
That's 18 holes.
You play.
Oh, you play it twice.
You play twice.
Two sets of tee boxes.
So.
Yeah.
Shows what I know.
Yeah.
So, and here again, we're back to, this is where I'm kind of got the hang up, is the $1 per round. So, I mean, I don't know, does that seem, I guess, is that what they're getting everywhere else? Is that what you guys are?
We have different agreements with everybody. I mean, that should work out to somewhere around, you know, 15,000 give or take per year. You know, after the first 5, it's going to take us a while to do the work and then get the membership back up. Yeah.
That's where my thing is. We're doing $10 a year for the lease for the first 5. So I mean, you could pay your $50 tonight. And you're caught up, right? 5 years in the good, and then after that, we're getting $1 a year. I wonder about the citizens, and you know, I know the golfers are all for it, regardless. I mean, but I just wonder about the citizens, the rest of them. We're going to have to fund this.
Well, also understand that that $1 a round is actually going to be plowed right back into the maintenance and upkeep.
It'd have to be, because we're already spending $1 million, man. I mean, think about
I know, but it's not going to retire debt.
I understand. That's where I'm having a real dilemma here.
We're going to be responsible for the debt and the bond and interest on this. Yes, the entire amount.
Yeah, and $15,000 won't cover the interest.
No.
So you see where I'm going with this?
I know exactly where you're going.
Just to maybe address some of that, going to golf being municipal golf courses losing money. I mean, they have contractual obligations to keep it up, maintain it, provide all labor, provide all equipment. I mean, for us to do that and go out and spend it, you know, if we provided that service, like all these other municipal golf courses who are self-performing, well, then it's kind of like the airport. Be ready to write a $100,000 check every year out of the general fund.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just trying to make sure that we're getting our cut out of our investment. You know, beyond just the cut.
The cut comes in. What we consider the secondary impacts of having a golf course in our community. Also, there's an opportunity with this golf course to be able to broaden the participation of people beyond just golfers. If we lose this venue, we lose it. It's gone. It's not recoverable.
I'm not saying we lose it. I'm just saying,
well, that's
$1.
But here's the point. The point is, if that's not done, if that investment's not made, we will lose the golf course. It's gonna have to close it. There's no other way.
I think Rich is in support of the golf course.
I'm in support of the golf course.
No, and I mean, I'm just saying it, but that's the choice we've got. I mean, the irrigation system for the front 9 is absolutely imperative.
So if I may, I also see this as a contributor to the economic development status of our community. I know I have presidents and vice presidents that fly in and stay up north, and they've asked me numerous times, and I give them the same answer. We've got a course coming. But they want to go out and they want to golf. They want to take their customer, my customer, go out and golf. Now that we've got a beautiful hotel with a 200-seat conference room coming, I think there's a lot of synergies there that we're going to be able to participate in, as well as LPKC. I'm positive about that relationship and getting Danica to spread the word, and I really think there's some secondary love here that we're forgetting about. And to Ryan's point, if we self-perform this and amortize all the equipment and the staffing and all that jazz, it just wouldn't be feasible. So I think we run with this contract and take a look at it when that contract allows us to, and kind of take it from there. If we look at past data, we see when the greens, quality of the greens go up, participation goes up. So I'm all for it.
I think, to Rich's point, the issue is reconciling, $1.1 million for something that is a small portion of the citizens utilizing.
Well,
so forgetting economic development, because that's an unknown. It's an unknown.
It's totally an unknown. You're right.
If we had the mineral rights, I'd probably be up with selling the property, but we don't. And because of that, and in the state that it is, because we didn't spend anything on it for 30 years, I feel like if you do that math, 1.15 million over 30 years, it's $3,500 a month or something. Even if we turned it into pasture and threw some disc golf out there and mowed the thing, it's going to cost us almost that. So the only way I can reconcile it is that the benefits that we may get, great, they're bonuses. But this is basically that we're taking care of an asset that we let go to crap, and we're reviving it. Do I want to be spending 1.1 million to do it? No, but it is where we're at.
I'd make a motion to authorize the city administrator to.
You could always just call the question.
There you have it.
Okay, a question's been called on the discussion. I will entertain a motion on new business item number 3.
Randy?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Vorsic, second. Winner is that we authorize the administrator to enter an agreement with JPM Enterprises LLC, DBA Great Life Golf and Fitness, to operate the Gardner Golf Course beginning April 17, 2018. Any other discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? New business item number 3 passes. New business item number 4, consider authorizing the city administrator to enter into a contract with Midwest Irrigation LLC to replace the irrigation system at the Gardner Golf Course. Jason Bruce.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Per the City Council's approval of the golf course operating agreement with Great Life, included in the agreement was an obligation for the city of Gardner to replace the irrigation system on the front 9 holes at the Gardner Golf Course. The project specifications for this irrigation system were designed by EC Design, and the city advertised the RFP in the Gardner News on March 21st. Per the city's purchasing policy, staff obtained 2 sealed bids on April 4th. Midwest Irrigation LLC returned a low bid of $867,240, and Landscapes Unlimited LLC returned a bid of $1,086,295. Their bid indicates the project will be completed in 42 calendar days. Following this timeline, if the contract were awarded tonight, it would be completed prior to June 1st, 2018, as requested in Great Life in the operating agreement that was passed earlier this evening. It should be noted that the bid price before you tonight does not include any costs associated with Midwest Irrigation's rock clause. This charge ranges from $18 per linear foot for 2-inch rock up to $65 per linear foot for 12-inch rock. We consulted with our group from EC Design about the rock clause, and it's really not feasible to accurately speculate on the total amount that may include in the rock clause for the contract. While much of the new irrigation system will be 12 to 18 inches below the surface of the course, the main lines will be about 2 feet deep, potentially increasing the possibility of encountering rock. In addition to that, the irrigation system will follow a different layout than the current system that's in place now, making it very difficult to determine if we will encounter any rock. Staff recommends City Council authorizes the City Administrator to execute a contract with Midwest Irrigation LLC to replace the irrigation system for $867,240, plus any additional fees pursuant to the rock clause at the Garner Golf Course, contingent upon financing. I did want to recognize that we have Larry Collins from EC Design here tonight, as well as Jim Beeves from Midwest Irrigation. I appreciate them making the long trek. They drove about 7 hours to be here tonight, so they are here to answer any questions that you may have on the project.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jason. Any public comment on new business item number 4? All right, with nobody coming forward with questions, comments for Jason or for the bidders?
Who determined the new layout of the irrigation? That was the only question that I had. Was it Great Life in the city, or was it the irrigator?
Larry Collins, EC Design. We worked with Great Life and the staff from the city to determine the most prudent layout, most economical layout, fitting for what the purpose of this golf course is going to be.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
And thanks for coming out.
My pleasure. That's a bit of a trek, too, from Dubuque, Iowa. It's quite a ways.
No thanks.
Anybody else? Any other questions? All right, I had one question, and that is about this rock clause. It's a concern of mine. I don't like uncertainty, and this is a big uncertainty issue. Landscapes Unlimited does not include a rock clause, correct? That's a flat rate?
Pardon me?
Landscapes Unlimited does not include a rock clause, correct?
Correct.
So it's a $1,086,295 fixed bid.
They did not have it in their bid packet.
Okay, but the $867,240 is a minimum, and we don't know what the maximum is.
Correct.
So we're rolling the dice then, right?
That's pretty much it. It's a calculated risk.
If you would like, I could have Jim come up and talk about a little study that they did.
Certainly.
On the back.
Hi, Jim Beeves.
Hi, Jim.
We did probe the entire golf course, and there's certain spots that will have a little rock, but from talking to other people that did the previous system, they did not have to use anything that was above and beyond, our normal methods. They did some pipes fairly shallow. So, I mean, that's going to be a discussion point, I think, if we hit rock and when we hit rock.
Mm-hmm.
I don't envision a huge number, but...
Well, in your estimation, Jim, doing other golf courses, and I don't know if you've done more in this area than in Iowa, but I'm wondering, what is what's your typical percentage of...
Usually none.
You usually don't have any percentage?
We haven't, I don't think I ever remember, maybe years and years ago in Wisconsin, we had a rock clause that came into play. But we haven't used a rock clause in a long, long time.
A lot more rock in Wisconsin.
There's a lot of rock in Wisconsin.
Okay.
But I don't know this facility. We did probe it, and he hit rock in some spots. Basically in the valley, a 4-foot tile probe.
Okay.
So in the valley, I think, I'm not familiar with the course, but I think is it the west side?
Yes.
The west side, down in the valley, some of those holes have some rock. So
you're pretty confident that the 867 will cover it?
I'm not, I don't know that.
Sure.
I can't answer that question, but I don't.
It was a nice try, Steve.
No, hey.
I mean, I don't envision huge amounts of it, because the entire right side of the golf course, there's no rock as far as I can tell.
So the difference is what, $200,000, $51 a linear foot? Was that right?
Yeah.
Worst case?
If it goes the deepest.
Yeah, worst case.
I don't think,
Actually,
no, according to Jason, the other bid didn't say it covers all the rock. They didn't include it at all. They didn't say one way or the other. So it's not like that's a max.
So that could be a change order situation.
Right. Correct?
Larry said that it's good to protect the city by building in this rock clause as well, just in case we do hit it.
All right, that's fair. Yes, yes.
We already have an established
When we put
price.
this thing out to bid, we put, in the bid form, there's a per size pipe, what the unit price is, if they hit rock, or if they have to deviate from normal trenching or vibratory plowing of pipe. And the way the process works is his staff gets with the city staff and says, all right, we've hit some rock. They look at it, they measure it, they both document it, and then it's kept like that, and then on their monthly billing or whatever, it's allocated that way. So the smaller pipe is the 2-inch, and then it goes up to the 12-inch. There's not a lot of 12-inch, there's not a lot of 10-inch, there's a lot of 6 and 8. So the other part of this that we'll work with Midwest on is trying to move pipe around so we don't have to, if we find a vein of rock, we can flip pipe to the other side of the fairway in most cases without it causing any change to the intent or the hydraulics of the irrigation system. So our intent is to do everything we can from a design standpoint to make the installation easier, because these guys don't want to hit rock. And to further point about Landscapes Unlimited not having a rock clause, then that means they didn't actually fill out the bid form accurately. Okay. Because the rock clause is called for in the bid documents. So if they didn't have that in there, that was a mistake on them.
No, that's
and
fine.
so this is a good number. This was the number range that we had hoped for in planning purposes, and Landscape's number was a little bit farther off the chart, unfortunately, for that, but it was good for them.
Yes, yes.
Mayor, if I might clarify, the second bid from Landscapes Unlimited did include a rock clause, and it speaks to, for a 2-inch, it would be 30 per linear foot, up to a 12-inch being 65 per linear foot.
Right.
So it's similar to their.
It is
similar, but
it
the
is
2 inches
included
better.
in their bid as requested on the bid
Sure.
specifications in the council package.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Cheryl, I appreciate that clarification. So that basically takes away any kind of objection that we might possibly have. Thank you. All right, with that, I think I'll entertain a motion on new business item number 4.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Baldwin, that we authorize the city administrator to execute a contract with Midwest Irrigation LLC to replace the irrigation system for $867,240 plus additional fees pursuant to rock clause at the Gardner Golf Course contingent upon financing. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? New business item number 4 passes. Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Jen. Council updates. Staff, have anything for council? I'll start with the city attorney.
The only thing I would add is I did look up the agreement with New Century. I sent an email to Cheryl and Gons about it. There is a provision in that agreement, even though it's a 20-year term on there. If we need that capacity, there is we can terminate the agreement with 1-year notice. So the escalation clauses are consistent with your all's memory. It's tied to percentage of what we do with residential rates, capped at a max of 10% on any given increase. But to me, the bigger point is if you need that capacity, as long as you provide it 1 year, you can recapture it.
We can negotiate until 2 when we have to go back to them and want to change those.
Base rates?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Finance director is.
You're the lady over there.
Laura bobbing her
We
head
can't
over
see your
there.
sign. We can't see your nameplate.
Exactly. Where's your nameplate? Oh, it's on the other side. It's facing outward.
I've only been here 29
29 years old.
I know, Laura. It's late.
Anyway.
It's late, yes.
I wanted to fill you in a little bit while you're pondering budgets and these sorts of things. I attended kind of a drill meeting Friday afternoon with the Johnson County Appraiser's Office and all my good friend finance directors. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, well, it wasn't a good time.
It's feedback from somewhere.
It's whenever any of your three mics come on. I don't know.
Okay. Well, anyway, try not to feedback. In general, you've heard about the dark store theory, you heard about the hypothetical lease thing. Well, that's what this was all about. And what the appraiser's office did was run their algorithm thing and try to calculate how much each entity stands to lose when some of these court cases and appeals start coming down. The good news is you're not Overland Park.
Yeah, right.
Okay? So, and sometimes it's good to not be Overland Park.
Right.
Right now, and this number is so just ballpark, it's that simple.
Yep.
What they're hearing is appeals from 2017 back to 2011. And it's gone from 1 in 2011 to 450 in 2017. And I'm not talking about residential. This is commercial. This is your hypothetical lease dark store stuff. And what's happening is the county is gearing up for a giant round in October having to do with all Walmarts in this county. And if and when they get a resolution on that lawsuit, which is probably going to take 6 months after October, and then whoever loses is going to appeal. It's, in other words, right now we're looking at maybe $90,000 Gardner revenue loss. If you want to feel better about that, you're not Overland Park. They're looking at $2.5 million, and it's already spent, right? So what they do if you lose and you get a ruling is they suck it back from us. So they'll withhold a future disbursement of our taxes, and they'll try not to make any of them negative. So good news, 90,000 is not insignificant, but it's not catastrophic. But it is something to remember that I can't tell you when, I can't tell you how much, I can't tell you how many years, but right now it looks like $90,000. And that's 2017. There's been no appeals yet for this year. So, and there won't be yet. And not only that, but the county appraiser says he's going to continue the current methodology because by God, he thinks it's right until someone says, no, you're not, in the form of a court, probably a Supreme Court ruling. So this could go on and on and on. So one thing I'll remind you all, I don't budget things that we don't have, and I can't tell you when they're coming. So for right now, I didn't budget anything new for CVS for property tax. Good news, because CVS is one of those things that they're appealing. Walmart you already have. So if you lose some on that, that'll hurt. But that they're including that because Walmart's appealing 2016 and 17 right now. So that's probably included in our 90,000. And I won't be budgeting anything material. So perspective, your new hospital, that's zero. You won't get money off your property tax for the hospital facility. It'll kick off that whole area, but hospitals don't count.
We're going to make it up with some tonight on our thing we rezoned.
I'm not saying you're not getting anything, but see, I don't budget those things. If you broke ground today, you're not getting any money till 2021 on whatever it is.
Correct.
Here's another thought for you. This doesn't include residential. I know we're talking about all the residential we're going to get. I did a little down and dirty. Your 400 homes, 212,000 average home, 85 million in new value. That doesn't even translate to $200,000 for residential property taxes. So things to keep in mind. Makes your 90,000 look a little bigger.
What's the chances that dark store is going to go? I mean, it sounds like it's gaining momentum now.
The county appraiser does not feel very good. He said basically they used to win almost all their appeals, and now they're losing almost all their appeals. So they're gearing up for the long haul, throw down dogfight about they're going to appeal. Whoever loses is going to appeal, right? So you're just not going to know till you know. But it's not a huge number. It's not insignificant, but for thank God you're not Overland Park and that I don't budget anything big
Yep.
for things that we don't have yet. So that's just past.
Yep.
I didn't kill myself after that meeting.
I think Overland Park's
some
finance
of them
director.
are, yeah, right?
Oh, man.
Thank you for the good news.
Yeah,
Yeah, really.
Thanks,
What a
Lauren.
rainbow you are to see. What?
In the meantime, how's the prosecution of our outstanding
I talked to them.
Special assessment.
I talked to them earlier this year, and I will tell you that I got the exact same answer I've given you for the last 3
years.
They're consistent.
Nothing.
They're working on it. I cannot pin them down any more than that. And basically, frankly,
That's
I
$1
think
million.
I told you yeah, it's a lot
Yeah.
more than that.
Yeah.
I think I told you last year, they threw the little bomb about, well, one of these in Miami County was $1. So I would consider it lost.
I don't like that.
The good news is that really is pretty much the end of your delinquent specials. Is that it's a big parcel that's never paid a penny.
It's huge.
But everything else has largely resolved.
Yes, it has.
So the good news is, in the end, you got most of it, but I'm not even going to consider we're getting that.
You were just a ray of sunshine today, Laura.
No, I'll just stop talking because y'all look sad.
City Clerk, you have anything for us?
Yes,
Moving
sir.
on, quickly, from Laura.
2 quick updates. One is I am still missing 9 nomination for citizen advisory committees. I will resend the list to each of you as to the 2 positions you have to nominate so that they can be put on the May 1st agenda. Remember, they need to be received 1 week before the Thursday when the agenda packet goes out in order for them to be on the consent agenda.
3 days. You guys gotta help me out.
You actually have an extra week this time between council
Yes.
meetings because we have
Correct.
5 Mondays in April, so you get a reprieve.
I put like 4 into the pool. None of them are my picks, so I need some help.
The second thing is we have applications for Planning Commission, Board of Building Code Appeals, and Airport Advisory Commission, and I need to know who your interview teams are for those so that I can
Okay.
move forward with scheduling interviews for them.
Well, I will be happy to take care of that for you. I think we'll draft Lee for 1 or 2 of those.
Pretty sure Lee
Second.
and I said we would do the airport again.
Yeah, Lee and you?
Yeah, we'll do it.
All right, so Baldwin and Moore will do the airport. And Planning Commission.
I'll do that.
Melton and Gregorczyk again?
Sure. Make a great duo.
Yeah.
So it's the
You
odd
did such a
couple.
good job last time.
It's the odd couple. And then the last one is the Board of Building Code Appeals, right?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Well, yeah. Todd, weren't we on
Todd
that one too?
and,
But that's fine. Once you do planning, I'll do
No,
planning. I'll do
yeah,
building.
I can do that too.
all right.
I mean,
so-
because you got sick on that one.
Oh, yeah.
Right. You looked like I looked the last Monday.
Okay, Todd, yeah, I remember that. Todd and this
Rich.
guy.
I'm Rich. Nice to
for,
meet you guys.
For Board of Building Code
Guy in the
Appeals.
corner.
How can I possibly forget you?
That's the first.
Any other committees that we need to, we're good there?
No, that's all.
All right, that is all. All right, and you have your consensus directive? Okay, great. Chief, you have anything for us?
Yes, sir.
Gons.
Last week, KCP&L and Garner filed a petition to KCC for transferring the service area from KCP&L to Garner to serve the Tuscan Farm project. So hopefully we'll have
Good.
jurisdiction over that area within the next few weeks.
Now, is that that's a fee transfer, correct? We're paying for that?
We're paying about $80,000.
It's worth it.
You have to buy the customers.
Yep, you do, you do, yes.
And then the electric rate study, we should have a draft by late this month or early next month.
Good, it's good to have that. Thank you. Jason, Parks and Rec.
Just a quick piggyback off of the mayor's presentation for Earth Day, Arbor Day. A reminder that it is this Saturday at the Gardner Greenway from 11 to 1. So we invite everyone to come out, help clean up. And if you're interested, please RSVP by calling our office by noon tomorrow morning.
So just a quick request. I am not going to be able to make the Arbor Day cleanup presentation at the start because I'm going to be coaching a soccer team out at Celebration Park. So I could sure use a volunteer from the council to be at that start.
I'm out of town.
You're out of town.
I'm booked for work.
You're booked.
Let me look at my calendar.
What time? It's going to be 11 o'clock, right? 11 a.m. on
Correct,
Saturday?
11 to 1.
This Sunday?
Saturday.
Saturday, I'm sorry.
This Saturday.
21st?
Yes, sir.
Sounds like a council president type of duty.
I can do it.
Yeah.
You can do it?
Yeah.
Okay, Randy, thank you.
My pleasure.
Great, thank
Yeah,
you.
I mean, I would draft Lee, but I don't know where he's at. It's like, where in the world is Lee Moore?
I guarantee you that.
Exactly, or he'll be jet lagged.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll give it to Randy. Thank you, Randy. Appreciate
pleasure.
your
Here to serve.
sacrifice.
Here to serve, no
Yes,
sacrifice.
I appreciate it.
So
Larry
put him on
Powell.
all the future things too.
Please do.
Larry Powell.
And I'll take the gavel.
Couple of quick things, sir. Back to the Board of Zoning Appeals, I would like to clarify one thing, that the position we have opening needs to be filled by a plumbing contractor representative. That is a
Correct.
required position which we have not filled. We filled the HVAC and the electrical, and we have the two at large. So we need to have, whoever you suggest or nominate needs to be able to have that expertise for
Certainly.
that. And then I just want to second the fact that I have a full board for this month's Planning Commission meeting, and I hope I have a full board for next month's Planning Commission meeting, so it would be very helpful if the folks meeting could, come up with some nice recommendations. The two new people that we have had their first meeting and performed very well,
Great.
and actually contributed very well to the conversation. So
Excellent.
we're very pleased with the new selections, and we appreciate your efforts on our behalf. Thank you. Just an update, we've had several phone calls from the public this week about what's going on down at Plum Creek. So information for the general public is that Plum Creek Manor is a subdivision that's being completed. And currently what you're seeing is the sewer, public infrastructure work for sewer, which will be followed by both water and roads, and of course stormwater drainage. And so you're going to see all those dead-end roads out there connect. And that creates, I believe it's either 71 or 73, 71. It's 71 new single-family lots will be the end result for that. And so Rosh Coleman is the subdivision provider. They're in full bore construction mode. They're very pleased with the progress their crews are making at the current time, and they expect, actually, they're ahead of schedule, and they expect to be completed on time and out of there so that they can actually start, they hope, first home construction late fall. So they're not letting any grass grow underneath their feet in that particular subdivision. Quail Meadows 2 is also nearing completion, which is a completion of that subdivision. And the first of two phases, there are 28 new homes, will start construction again later this fall. And then just to top it all off, we got our first fireworks permit application today. And it was for an existing site that was approved last year, so it was a very quick approval process, so they're already been approved and they're ready to roll.
Great,
Awesome.
great.
Can't believe it's getting that time already.
Yeah, they're already getting inventory together.
I know.
Rich.
Excited.
So, just a quick, you got that note right, Amy, that we need to have a plumbing contractor? And do we have any folks that have applied yet?
I don't recall from looking at the applications. I did send the applications to the governing body, but I will review and see what they have.
Yeah, because, yeah. And then the Rosh Coleman Development, Plum Creek Manor, as well as Quail Meadows too. Are those, can you give us an idea of the price point of those? What they're looking at?
The Plum Creek homes would be starting in the 275 and up range, and then the Quail Meadows would be slightly lower than that, but not much.
I was gonna say,
Your average
built
home
around.
now is about 250 in the city.
Yeah, that's even
So,
for the tier ones.
They're nobody.
Well, you mean second tier homes?
Yeah,
Is that what you're talking about?
These are all tier two.
There will be, Yes, Rosh Coleman's planning on building some second-tier homes up against the back end of what is the higher part of Plum Creek. But most of the ones that we're expecting to come in at that level actually will be at Tuscan Farms, which will be later this year.
Yep.
Yeah, 200,000 for a new house in Gardner is like,
Nothing.
that's, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
You can't touch hardly anything.
Even the dark ones.
Okay, moving on. Public Works. We have nothing in Public Works, okay. City Administrator?
Nothing.
Nothing, okay, great. Start with the council members. We'll start with the individual to my left, Rich Melton.
Oh, you remembered, hey,
Yes, I did remember.
I'm good, I don't have anything.
You have nothing?
Yeah, I'm pretty boring this week, and last
Wow.
week, or last meeting too.
Sickness suits you.
I second that motion. I'll go really quick.
Randy Gregorczyk, yes.
And I gave Michael Kramer a brief heads up on this, and I apologize for not getting an email out to you. I deeply apologize. But I have had a lot of folks at the coffee shop or getting my laundry or what have you. And it's warming up, thank goodness. With the new road overlay on South Gardner Road, south of Viaduct, citizens are just wondering if there was a place that they could go online and type in their 620 East Hawthorne, and voila, we're going to be out there July the 2nd.
Yeah, there's not that type of information yet on our website. Once we get closer to construction and we're getting ready to put the curb portion out to bid for our residential street projects, and once we do that, and once we have a more firm date when folks will be headed that way, we will have that information on our website. And additionally, we will have some updated public notifications that are required by the contractors. In the past, we've had those, but we're going to require a little bit better control and reporting of those. And then we're also doing some things to help improve, how it's perceived in the neighborhoods. Because one of the issues we had last year was, when you come through a neighborhood and we're working on curb and gutter on both sides of the street, and the contractor basically works on both sides at the same time. And this year we're going to try and eliminate that. So hopefully help with that. But back to your point, we will have that information available on our website.
Okay, thank you, Michael. The last question I had, same person. Did we get any sort of transportation study in specific to Gardner Road and 191st Street? I thought we had something a couple of months ago coming out in April-ish.
Yeah, and so we have some draft copies, and we have submitted to Federal Highway for their review on those.
Okay, thank you, Michael. That's all I had, gentlemen.
Okay, great. Mark Baldwin.
All right, I'll be rich.
This will be good. All right, batten it down.
One question is, and this may have just been a simple oversight, or I just don't know that it's done this way, but for proclamations like for autism awareness, that's for the whole month, can we do that at the first meeting of the month so that it's for the whole month?
We can. The reason we didn't last time is because we had all the public hearings and the presentations and fit into the agenda better. And it's typically been done at the second meeting in April in the past 5 to 6 years.
Okay. I just thought if it's something for the whole month, we should do it at the first one, declaring the month.
We can absolutely do that. We just usually follow the same schedule every year for proclamations we do yearly, and that one is done at the second meeting in April.
Okay. I complain to Todd every meeting and about our laptops, how they're extremely sluggish. I can't even download the PDF for 20 minutes, and then I can't scroll through it because it gets hung. And when we have these get replaced, could we just have a simple tablet or something that actually has the packet up on it when I get in here? Because it takes me half the meeting to be able to use it. It really does.
That's why I get here early.
I mean, if I'm here for a work session, I'm ready to go for the actual meeting. But it literally takes forever, especially with the packet, tonight that's between all the attachments, 600 pages.
Well, at least you have a,
Well, yeah, I could do that. But,
that's what I get.
I'm trying to be thinking about Arbor Day, so.
Exactly, killing trees.
We'll take
Okay,
care of it.
and then my last thing is, I want another work session.
All right. They gotta go.
We just had the water and wastewater presentation. We're, I think, hopeful that we'll have the electric May 21st. So I feel like we're going to have to hit the ground extremely quickly after we have all that information and presentations as to how we want to, digest that and if we want to manipulate things based off further feedback from this study. So I'm asking for a June work session that we could go over utilities.
See a
Okay.
problem with that necessarily.
Is that doable?
Yes, I was just thinking about kind of what we have scheduled for the budget, but we may look at an off week.
Okay,
If we-
well,
okay.
and that's something else.
But we will.
Or if we need to
we
push
will
that up
work-
sooner.
We
just
will.
say so.
We will work on something for you.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. That's it.
Well,
You did a pretty good
kind
job of Rich, yeah.
Okay for me, but.
Yeah, you did a good job
You got
of
some
Rich.
time to work on it.
Give me time.
Todd Winters.
Nothing.
Okay, wow. You and, I don't know, there's something weird going on here. All right, so the only thing I had really was I wanted to, thank the work, for the work that was done again for the downtown corridor study. That was a lot of effort by a lot of people. 18 months of work in there, and I think we came out with a blueprint for prosperity for our town that is very robust and very flexible. And I want to just commend everybody from, our city staff, its administration, all the way down through our departments, as well as the folks at Confluence who are no longer in the room. They've gone home. Good for them. But again, I want to express my gratitude for that. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Baldwin, that we adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? We are out of here.